Shock the system. Bulletcast for life.
Biggest icon in wrestling.
Welcome to Bulletcast episode 200. Yay! Oh my god! Woohoo! Yeah! Yes. It's finally here. This is a huge milestone for the Bulletcast. Seriously, man. I mean, for 200 straight weeks, we've always put out content. Whether it be this regular episode you're listening to, whether it be interviews or, under the radar. Into the Stratosphere joined us. You know what I mean? Watch-alongs, bonus content. We've always put out content. This is huge for me, man. When I first started this, I was like, you know what? I'll talk about wrestling. And then as time went along, oh man, I'm at episode 10. I'm at episode 30. All right, 50 will be a nice little milestone. And then we get to 100. That's a shoot, brother. I wanted to take a break because, the numbers weren't where I wanted them to be and everything like that. And I saw something on Facebook. I can't remember where I saw it, but basically the gist of the post was, if you start something, then stop it, and then start it again, and finally achieve success. Imagine how much more success you could have achieved if you had never stopped to begin with. And I'm like, wow, that's awe-inspiring to me. So then, I saw that a couple of days before episode 100. I was like, you know what? We're gonna keep it going, and here we are, man. Episode 200. This is great. But I never do it alone. He's my tag team partner, the Jim to my J, the totem on the Stevie Ray to my Booker T. Ladies and gentlemen, host of the award-winning Under the Radar, host and creator of Curveballs and Chair Shots, the first ever and 9-time Bulletcast champion, the Canadian Destroyer, BT, Brandon Tanguma. BT, episode 200. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing fantastic. They used to call me Mr. No Days Off, and that's definitely true. I'm going to bring the old gimmick back. This might be episode 200, but only about 197 of them actually matter.
They all matter. They all matter. They every single one of them matters. I've done 2 of these by myself, and I did the Broadway. I went 60 minutes, but it wasn't easy because you left me a couple weeks.
I'm sorry. I had to go overseas, go back to the homeland, but for the most part, I'm always here.
Absolutely. And you know what? We're not alone. It's our third person. No Smokey hasn't returned. The other guy's not back. Young boy number 2 isn't here. Ladies and gentlemen, the sensational Sherry of the Bulletcast for the BC Nation, Cindy G. Cindy, welcome back.
Hey, thank you for having me. Congratulations on the 200 episode. I'm so honored to be with you guys and congratulating for all you guys' hard work and your success. And I would say this, I am forever grateful to being part of the Bulletcast family. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. I mean, during the pandemic, our focus mainly was on WWE and AEW because they were the only ones really putting out content. And New Japan, they started running again. So did Impact, and you took over for those products. And thank you. No, seriously, thank you. 100%.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, with New Japan Pro Wrestling, it got me to the point where back then I was just a casual fan. I only watched it here and there. But then when they restarted back in June, that's when I became a full-fledged fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling, watching it constantly. And then when Impact, I just started watching it after Slammiversary since they did prove a point of they started to rebound the company ever since they have this kind of a shade of grade of a reputation they had throughout the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been vocal about Impact Wrestling. I mean, we've had TJP on, and we talked about that current crop of talent. But let's just talk about favorite. I have to introduce myself. You already know who I am. You've heard me for 200 weeks. I'm a microphone messiah. I was a pod father. I'm an African American nightmare when it's Black History Month. I'm a 9-time Bulletcast champion. Greatest sports recreational podcast in the world today. Greatest sports entertainment podcaster in the world today. But ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna just talk favorite moments. So Cindy, I mean, you're new to the crew. Since you've been how long have you been listening? How'd you discover us? I don't think I've ever heard that.
Well, I've been discovered about the Bulletcast ever since I actually met Baby Huey at APW last March. And so I saw him like promoting different podcasts, and it came across Bulletcast. So I was like, okay. So I believe the first time I ever listened to you guys would be you guys' review on last year's SummerSlam that took place in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I was pretty blown away by like the different stuff, like the recap, and then you guys did the shows. Fan mails is definitely a total must because I really enjoy the fan mail segment, especially this one particular sender, which I know we're gonna get into that with the whole fan mail segment, but yeah.
Oh wait, who's your favorite fan mailer?
Hootie Hoo 420.
Hooty hoo.
Hey, I'm there for a couple weeks. There was a backwoods 420. I forgot what happened to that guy. Then of course Copenhagen Smith. Brandon, do you remember him?
I still get recommendations on Twitter for me to follow him, and I look, and he hasn't even tweeted anything since like December. I don't know where he went.
Hey, he probably went off the grid or maybe got locked out of his account. Copenhagen, bro, if you hear this, email us, please. Absolutely. We want to hear from you. We do. So, I mean, Cindy, have you had a favorite episode of ours? Any favorite moments or interviews that we've done here on the show?
I would say my favorite interview you've done was actually Lord Adrian, aka Lord A, the aka one half of the Walmart boys. I really enjoyed the interview a lot, especially I learned so much of like where he got it started and this whole concept of like doing these different stunt videos and see where he's at. Like, you know, ever since like him and Tahir 2 Times did their debut at GCW, Joey Janela Spring Break 4. So that was kind of like one of my favorite interviews. Also, your interview with Bimbo Jimbo not too long ago. I really enjoy the interview a lot, especially learned so much about the different areas back in the day of like the old school podcast, like from many years ago that I was even aware of, and to how it is for today. So that's actually kind of like my favorite interview from you, Phillip.
Thank you, thank you. I mean those are special, you know, Jimbo and Huey. Those are good brothers, genuinely just good human beings, and there aren't that many good people around, especially nowadays with people being more open to their beliefs and whatnot. So I really do enjoy those interviews 100%. Do you have any favorite moments of ours?
Favorite moments? Let's see. I'm trying to think. It's been so long. Like, shoot. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. The whole Smokey situation, that was pretty interesting. It was pretty entertaining, I must say so. And yeah, pretty much that's all I can think about that at this moment. Rest in peace, Smokey.
Oh, R.I.P. Smokey. I miss you,
Yeah.
brother. I missed you.
Yeah.
You know, oh my God, I should have made him the Bulletcast champion. That would have been great. That would have been hilarious. Yeah. So I guess, you know, just moving on. Brandon, do you have any favorite moments? Or, you know what? I think we have fan mail about moments and stuff. So I guess we'll just wait for that kind of stuff once we get there. But Brandon, I mean, do you have a favorite episode besides Young Boy number 2?
I mean, how can we not do the Young Boy number 2 episode? That is by far my favorite one of all time. A little backstage story. You know, we actually did this live in person at Phillip's house. We used to do it at Chabot in a fancy studio. That didn't happen anymore. So we went to Phillip's house. I think this might have been like maybe the second or third time I ever like actually been to Phillip's house. And poor Young Boy number 2 was had a little bit of stage fright. But, you know, once he got over it, he made his impact long lasting forever on the Bulletcast. He might have only been on one episode, but it might be the greatest episode of all time.
Absolutely. Oh, that my former estate. That's just my grandmother's house. You know what? One day when COVID's over, we're gonna have to do one in person at the new casa. Yeah, man. I mean, Scott. That's his breaking kayfabe. That's his real name. Yeah. I mean, he trains at BTW. I mean,
Where?
Yes,
Name reacted, of course.
absolutely. But yeah, I mean, so he came over and I met him at a show. Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I'll give you a shot, man. Sure. So his grandpa drove him, and his grandpa just sat in the car for like the whole like hour and a half that he was at the house. But yeah, I mean, he was completely cool, you know, before the recording, and then I literally pressed record. He saw the red button, he just kind of froze up, and I'm like, oh, hey, it's okay, dude. You know, people get stage fright. This is a form of public speaking. You know, he doesn't know Brandon and I that well. I'm like, okay, dude, it's all right, bro. It's okay. And then, oh my God, he stole the show. He stole the show with his
We almost got into a fight because he was going to shoot fight me.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because I broke kayfabe and said wrestling was scripted or something like that.
Oh yeah, and then he almost worked himself into a shoot. But I mean, he sung the Firefly Funhouse song. Oh my God.
He stole my gimmick of the iconic pose.
I wish that was on video so bad. Oh my God, it's a hidden gem. It is a hidden gem. Seriously, it is. Oh my God. Oh my God. Brandon, do you have any favorite interviews that we've done here?
I mean, I do like the APW ones that we have done because for the most part, like I'm not like the biggest indie fan in the world, so I don't like know all these guys and know their backstory. So, I'll see them at a show every now and then, but kind of learning the backstory. I know maybe some of the fans out there who maybe aren't from the Bay Area, never seen these guys perform. And, it's a nice little thing. And also, got to put myself over. I like at the very start of COVID, I did the Starboy Charlie thing. And, we have the gimmick to where every time we interview someone, they go into bigger and better things. I interview Starboy Charlie. He goes off to GCW, and he's a TikTok star now. So
I was his first interview. Let's not forget that. So Charlie, if you hear this, once you blow up, remember us. Yeah, I mean we do have that, huh? I mean, Carl Fredericks, Japan, Jeff Cobb, Ring of Honor TV title, Japan. Yeah, I mean AJ Kirsch. Will Hobbs, absolutely. AEW, AJ Kirsch, MLW. I just talked to Jacob Fatu about an interview. He won the MLW World Title.
Wow.
I mean, we're on to something here. I talked to Chris Bay about an interview. Look at him now. Look at him now.
Impact and competing for the Super J Cup.
Absolutely, man. This is great. I love it. I love it. I really do. So we're just gonna get into the questions. We have 5 questions throughout this show, ladies and gentlemen, and we have some special guests that will be joining us too. So that's gonna be fun. But the first question at hand: wrestling in the pandemic era. What have been your thoughts on it in the beginning, and then what have been your thoughts on it since we've kind of gotten to a nice little groove as of late in the last couple months with fans returning in AEW and so on and so forth. Brandon.
So I remember back in the day when everything first started, as I said, I was doing the Starboy Charlie stuff, and we were supposed to go to an APW show that very, like the weekend, the NBA shut down and all the sports were shut down and everything really all went to hell. And that was just kind of like a surreal moment. And WrestleMania, we were thinking, maybe WrestleMania will be there and we'll be fine. And then we kind of realized, nope, that's not going to happen. And then we were like, SummerSlam, that's the right time. We'll be able to come back, and that's not going to happen. So, I mean, and now at this point, we're hoping for maybe next year's WrestleMania to be like the first real time fans are back. But I mean, at the beginning, I think it was the March 16th episode of Raw where it was Stone Cold Day. So he was out there, no fans, doing his gimmick. And that was kind of weird. But then, we start to get used to it. It's kind of our new normal. I know that's kind of cliche at this point, but we've seen WWE. I mean, AEW, I think, has been kind of on the forefront of kind of like, how they shoot the show and how they're able to kind of get around everything. Sometimes I feel like there's maybe too many people at the arenas and in the vicinity of the wrestlers. But I definitely think at the beginning I was like, with no fans, it's going to be terrible. But I think as time gone on, I think all the companies kind of around have been able to, realize what's going on and try to make the most out of this situation.
Cindy, what about you?
Well, I didn't think about this whole pandemic going on because, like, as y'all know, if you guys follow me for quite a while, the beginning of this year was a very horrible start because not only my grandfather passed away, but then almost 2 weeks later, my 103-year-old great grandmother passed away. So I was having like a complete horrible month of February, like grieving and mourning the deaths of like 2 of my immediate loved ones. And I couldn't even think about like whether or not if I want to go to an independent wrestling show because besides that, and then other like different like debates going on about, well, you guys remember the question I sent you about is independent wrestling fading because like some of the stars are like signed to like this company. I don't know if you guys remember it because I did send you guys the question like a while ago.
We remember all of our questions.
Oh, there have been a lot of questions.
A lot. Okay.
Honestly, I can't remember. I'm sorry.
Okay. And no worries. Yeah. So like I was kind of like losing hope in wrestling, especially with AEW. Don't get me wrong. Like back then, I started to love AEW, but then again, it's like I was very like unhappy with like the way they booked the women's division and like the questionable like title changes and whatnot is kind of like to a point where like I was about to completely burned out of wrestling. But then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to APW, just see how am I gonna be doing. And then Rona taking over the world. So it got to a point where like I started to like see how WWE is handling the situation. Then you have this whole like empty arena situation, like from SmackDown Live. And then I trying to watch it, but then it's like I'm not feeling it 100%. It doesn't even feel the same. It kind of sets kind of like a downer on my mental health that like I just stopped watching WWE, and then like the whole obvious like situation, which we're not going to get there in just a moment. But then I started to give AEW a chance. And the first thing that I saw was Cody cutting an introduction. And the way that he said it about like, you know, there is fear among us and don't know what's going to be happening with the rest of the world. He did cut a very beautiful speech. And then you have Kenny Omega. And I think Matt came in. And then Hangman Page, because I know Nick was out with an injury, all thanks to the Inner Circle, which I think so. I think it's like a while back, but yeah. And so the way AEW handled it, like bringing in like just the rosters to be on like ringside, they did handle it perfectly. But I remember like on the next episode, they had like some of the rosters in the backstage due to like the lockdown restriction, and they had to like film it in the Nightmare Factory, in Georgia. And so the way AEW handling with the pandemic, they're doing pretty well. And I do have to agree with you, Brandon. Yeah, it's like the crowd control is starting to get too much. It's starting to get a little bit overcrowded. I wish they should just spread out as much as they can. But then again, it's like they're actually handling it in a perfectly standard way. Now, I did follow with Impact Wrestling, and they started to do like the taping of the Empty Arena show in May, because like they have to finish like doing like the rest of the stock taping they did like from Vegas to Georgia. And then when May 5th hit, that's when they start the episode where the whole Empty Arena show happens. And still then Impact Wrestling still doing the whole Empty Arena show. And I know some of the people are kind of like complaining about like, I wish you would bring in like a little bit of fans, or like have like a virtual setting like the Thunderdome. But I feel with Impact, they're doing it just fine. And then with New Japan, they started with the empty arena, except having the press and media being in the audience, which sets like a little bit of the crowd control. And then right until the New Japan Cup finale, they brought in like third of the guests leading up to Dominion also. And that's when they started to bring in like more fans coming in like limited capacity. However, the only thing I want to complain about New Japan is when they have their show in Kurikan Hall, I feel like the bleacher seat is still too close to the audience. I feel like they should just like taped off like one row of it and then just keep like making sure for like the health and safety. But all in all, I feel like there has been no reports of like COVID cases within like the New Japan Pro Wrestling audiences, which they're actually pretty much handling it very well for that in the landscape. So pretty much this is like the whole new normal of this pandemic era of wrestling that we have to deal with. Rather or not, like if you're watching like based on your preference, like if you're watching WWE or AEW or New Japan or even Ring of Honor or MLW or any other promotional company that will bring like, you know, enjoyment during this difficult time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think for me, you know, it obviously it's weird. It's weird for anybody, you know. And I mean, I'm a WWE guy, you know. Brandon thinks I'm a company shill. But yeah, I was just like, Mania without fans, you know, just postpone it. I mean, people were like, okay, maybe June at the Garden, that would be dope for Mania, but you know, the show must go on and everything like that. So I mean, it was awkward. It really was. It really was. I mean, there were certain elements where it worked, where like the closed set and the performance center, like you can really hear the hits and the trash talking, and certain people thrived in the performance center, like a Asuka, Sasha Banks, and MVP Bailey, and those who were really still kind of green, like an Austin Theory. You know, they really showed where they need some more work truly. Um, But now, I mean, it's been so much better. I mean, AEW's brought back fans in the last couple months. WWE, they have virtual fans, which we're gonna get into. I mean, I guess this. Ooh, let me stop that. I guess this is the perfect time to get into it. So the Thunderdome, how well do you think it's worked? I know, Cindy, I know you don't watch WWE at the right moment, but just if you can give some insight into how you feel the Thunderdome has worked.
Interesting concept. I think they kind of pretty much handled it perfectly, just like the NBA. However, the only issue is that I wish it would just like give kind of like a stricter, like kind of like I don't know, a membership or something like that. Because I know like since they start in the beginning, you have like couple people or like kind of like hijacking some of the Thunderdomes. Like you heard of those controversy that happens in the beginning too. I just wish they would have like much more of a stricter guidelines or like something to do like, oh, you can only pay for like, I don't know, not too expensive to join with the Thunderdome crown, just, you know, making profits. Cause I know with WWE, they're still going on with their whole financial crisis. But again, I'm not going to get into that because I have like my high feelings about WWE, which you guys can check it out in past episode Into the Stratosphere. Just saying.
Oh, I mean, hey, we can get into it. We
It's
we
so much tea though.
I mean, so like, I've never asked you this, but I mean, this is the perfect stage. Is any what's the qualm with WWE?
Okay, first things first. Number one, they did not take handle of this whole COVID situation. Especially they kind of like put COVID in the back burner. Number two, like the only thing they did is the temperature check. And lo and behold, like not even like a week before Mania, someone in the WWE staff got tested positive for COVID. And then that's where the whole outbreak began. And then the biggest of all is the layoffs too, like laying off like a bunch of the WWE superstars and the roster during and the staff members during the pandemic. That kind of sets the whole bar of like, you know, I'm not gonna watch WWE anymore. It's just getting too much. I was thinking about watching it again, but then the whole speaking out movement happening, and yeah, I just gotta have to leave it at that because like
Was anybody in WWE involved in that?
Yep.
Your favorite boy, Matt Riddle. Or sorry, Riddle.
Riddle.
Oh no, absolutely.
Mr. Entanglement.
Oh Jesus! Oh my God, he's on his
Been
August.
like the entire NXT UK roster.
Oh,
yeah,
for real. Velveteen
right.
Dream, Austin Theory.
I mean, what? I mean, look, what Dream? Look, I love Dream, but what happened did happen. That's questionable. And I think well, your problem was they didn't like rightfully address COVID. Was that it?
Correct. And also like the whole situation with the whole furlough situation, like they should have like solved like in a different way, but then they have to let go a bunch of people, even though it sucks, but then it can be a blessing because look how some of the star has been released. They're now doing better things in different promotion like AEW and Impact.
Absolutely. I mean, a couple people have like a lot of the backstage people. I know they're already back with the company and stuff like that. As far as not mentioning it, I mean, it was like, why aren't you guys doing that? But they want to provide entertainment for us, and they don't want us to think about it, and it's just a whole convoluted mess. Going back to the Thunderdome, that's where we were. I think it's been great. I think it's been very instrumental. Raw and SmackDown feel like those shows again. Pay-per-views feel slightly important yet again. It really, the aesthetic of it is absolutely amazing. And then of course they're moving to a baseball field, which is going to be I can't wait to see that aesthetic of
The only
Thunderdome.
Tropicana field. I mean, it's nothing special.
I mean, I want to see it. Brandon, what have been your thoughts on the Thunderdome?
The Thunderdome, I think it has been a success. For me personally, I'm not really like a big stage type of guy. I don't think, I'm not someone who will like look at Impact or maybe ROH and some of the lesser promotions that, oh, they don't have all these fancy gadgets, so they can't be a good show. I mean, New Japan, very bare bones for the most part, especially like on their road shows.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not something that really, affects me too much. But Thunderdome, I think for what they have, it's very flashy. And I think when they were in the Performance Center, it was getting a little bit stale. It did feel like maybe it was a little too small of an environment. Now, when it comes to NXT, the Capitol Wrestling Center, I think they've done a nice job with kind of that nice, smaller aesthetic and kind of having the same feel of Thunderdome. I mean, the virtual fans thing, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I mean, they did it in the NBA. I didn't like it there. And it's just like people, it's just like faces, and they're not they're not emoting at all. And then when they do emote, they're like way over the top, either because they're trying to get on TV or that's what the directors are telling them to do. So, I mean, if you just kind of took away like the faces and like the fans aspect of it, which I know that's probably like a big proponent for a lot of people out there, that's just one of the things that I'm not the biggest fan of the Thunderdome.
Okay. I mean, they have started to. I know they're reusing certain reactions, and they're piping in crowd noise. But I mean, it's worked. It has worked for your boy.
And the
All right.
piping in of the crowd noise is a big no. I mean, we talked a little bit about it for the Survivor Series with
Soccer,
the
doesn't
Undertaker. I mean, yeah, but when it comes to sports, like you're just trying to create an atmosphere and just like make it like not weird. Like you can have like some white crowd noise and like, not make it too over the top. When you're like trying to force a "this is awesome" chant or, really going over the top one way or another, I think that's where I kind of have a problem with it.
Well, you didn't like them chanting "Thank you, Taker." You didn't.
Not
you
for
didn't
like not for 5 minutes.
Hey, you know what? If there were actual people in the arena, we probably would have done that. They probably would have done that for 5
But
minutes.
Phillip, let me spoil something for you. They weren't actually fans in Thunderdome.
I'm saying if there were if the whole pandemic wasn't happening and Taker retired at this event, there probably would have been people saying "Thank you, Taker" for 5 minutes. And you know what? It's on the network. They would have allowed it, and it would have been fantastic.
If was a fifth, we'd all be drunk, Phillip.
Oh my God!
And WWE would be a lot better.
Wow.
Shade.
How you gonna say that? We're WWE positive here. How you gonna do that, man?
Minus me.
I mean, you're WWE positive.
Hey, I want VKM. I want him to sign my checks one day. All right. How dare you? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get to our first guest. He is one of the commentators and backstage interviewers for the United Wrestling Network, my good buddy Bimbo Jimbo, James Kincaid. Ladies and gentlemen, the first guest for Bulletcast 200. He's from Warriors Radio. He's the moderator for the Wrestling War Room on the 10 Media Network, and he's one of the color commentators for Prime Time Live on the United Wrestling Network. The showstopper, Bimbo Jimbo, James Kincaid. Jimbo, how you doing, bud? Welcome back to the BC, brother.
Man, what a great intro! You're giving me a big head. That was awesome, and you nailed them all. And so, salute to you, sir. It's good to be back.
Absolutely, man. I mean, thank you for coming on to episode 200. This is a milestone. Not many sitcoms get 200 episodes.
First of all, you're absolutely right. It is a big milestone. So let me start off by saying congratulations to you and the Bullet Cast for that, because 200 episodes is a lot of episodes. Being somebody that's been podcasting since 2008 or 2009, I understand the ups and downs of it, the ins and outs, and the grind that it can be. So to show that kind of dedication and commitment to reach 200 episodes, I'm proud of you guys. Good work, brother.
Thank you, man. I mean, I made it a point, like, I never want to miss a week, and I'm surprised I've really kept up this long. I didn't think I'd get to 200. I didn't even think I'd get to 50. So this is cool for me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. And also, by the way, this is a special occasion for myself. This is the first broadcast, the first recording that I'm doing from my new office setup here in San Francisco. So we're testing. This is the maiden voyage for me from my new little nook in my home here in the city. So if there are any audio issues or anything like that, my bad.
It's okay, man. I still got my smoke detector beeping. It's become a fixture on the Bullet Cast now. It's Brandon's mortal enemy.
I love it.
Yeah, they got
it happens.
They got Brett Sean heat.
Okay, well, hopefully they got Brett Sean chemistry is the main thing, though.
Absolutely, smoke detector is going to start pulling out Brandon's hair in bar fights. We don't know, but yeah, man. I mean, the purpose for this, I wanted to do something completely different, and you're the first line of guests I'm going to be having on this episode. So we're just going to talk about wrestling in 2020. It started off hot, an amazing Rumble. Edge came back.
Yeah.
Brock sold the ish for Drew McIntyre, and McIntyre wins the Rumble. And then, AEW Revolution in February, amazing entrance by Le Champion, Jericho Mox. He wins the title. He's going to be leading the charge, and then like 2 weeks later, the world changes. Like it shuts down. It's been a crazy year, man. So I really just want to get into wrestling this year. What were your thoughts at the beginning of the pandemic era, and what have your thoughts been in the last couple weeks?
Well, I think if we've learned anything, it's that churning Johnny Gargano heel is what caused all of this stuff to happen. So, I knew that was a bad idea. I just didn't realize how bad of an idea that would turn out to be. And so now here we are in lockdown because of it. So, for shame. But, in 2020, I came into a little bit about my personal story too, to bring into it. 2020, I entered this year with high hopes for myself, professionally in professional wrestling and what I wanted to accomplish this year. And it seemed like, for me, the championship wrestling presented by West Coast Pro Wrestling on ABC 7 here in the Bay Area was taken off. I was super excited about that opportunity. All Pro Wrestling was, had such a great plan of shows and great lineups that we were going to hit you with. I was so stoked to be on the call for those things. And, was doing in the click with baby Huey and everything. It just seemed like it was going to be just all systems go. And then, the shutdown happened and it was kind of, wow, like, this was supposed to be my year kind of deal to figure out where I fit within the whole landscape. Now things have, taken sort of an upswing more recently. But that's sort of how I looked at it, not to make it all about myself, but it's just been a very interesting sort of development. And I have to commend the professional wrestling industry at large for showing adaptability, for showing innovation. If like you look at WWE's, their Thunderdome is something that literally, when I say will be in textbooks about sports broadcasting, it will be in textbooks about sports broadcasting. And then I think they even did an even better job with the CWC, credit to AEW for being the first ones to put their performers ringside to generate that noise. And, again, for the 2-day WrestleMania was a great escape early in the pandemic to sort of take our mind off things. And, they're adjusting, and you've seen, I think, in this era, certain performers rise, maybe some sink, but I think like the Randy Ortons of the world, the MVPs of the world have shown that they have a true mastery over who their character is and what they want to do with that character, what that character would do in any given situation, regardless of whether or not there's a crowd. And I think those are the performers that you've seen really thrive, amidst all of this.
No, yes, absolutely. I mean, we're going to talk about at the end who was the true MVP of this era in pro wrestling. But yeah, I mean, you look at it when WWE first started doing these no crowd shows. They were in the Performance Center, and they had the hard cam on the chairs. Like, look, nobody's here, and I'm like, it's not attractive. I mean, you had Austin, there for 316 Day, which I think they should have just canceled that.
Well, what they shouldn't have done is not have him go give me a hell yeah and then pan over to the empty crowd. Like, oof, it was bad.
Well, yeah, that was terrible. I mean, and then AEW did it early on, but WWE, they all adapted the Ring of Honor shot, which has always been hard cam at the entranceway, and it's been working for WWE, AEW, Impact, and Ring of Honor. They've just started running back shows, but I mean it was very awkward. Like you said, the 2-day WrestleMania was a great escape with our cinematic matches, the Firefly Funhouse match, and of course the Boneyard match. But I want to talk about the state of the art that is the Thunderdome. I mean, WWE, it wasn't good. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, there are some people that thrived in the Performance Center, like an MVP or an Oscar, but like it wasn't really hitting the strides that it should have been. And then they introduced the Thunderdome, and it feels like Raw again. It feels like SmackDown again. Pay-per-views have a little bit more oomph to them now.
Yes. So, well, I think what you see there is because the cat's been out of the bag on what pro wrestling is for a long time. It is unbelievable sports entertainment. It is an athletic display, but there is that knowledge that, going into it is a performance. And I think when you take away the fans, I think certain performers lose their illusion for themselves. that about what they're doing. That it's like that they're not confident enough maybe in themselves, in their character. That's like, well, what am I doing this for if there are no fans, kind of deal. Even if it's just a few. But it's the idea of that people are watching you do this kind of deal beyond just the television screens and stuff like that. And yeah, the Thunderdome has been a game changer. What a great innovation, which is something that I'm sure we will probably see moving forward in a lot of sporting events and everything like that beyond just the WWE. But, you know, really for me, like, and I love the presentation. So much of wrestling is the presentation. We've learned that through this pandemic era and everything like that. But I really think I prefer, or what I think makes a greater impact, are those wrestlers or smattering of fans that are ringside or at the event, because even like a little bit of noise just goes such a long way to making the buy-in factor and making the match better.
No, absolutely, 100%. And I want to talk about the Capitol Wrestling Center. That it's the Performance Center, but they've upped the ante. They have a little bit of the Thunderdome Rome going on. They have the trainees still at ringside, and I think it's not like actual fans. I think it's like friends and family that are kind of around there, and they put the cage on the plexiglass and give it this real gritty feel to make it completely separate from the Thunderdome. What are your thoughts on NXT's presentation with that?
I think CWC is even better than Thunderdome. I think it's the perfect combination of the two. I think you get the innovation and the technology of the Thunderdome, and you still get that, you know, sort of grittier, liver, rawer feel that you were getting at the Performance Center and with NXT. It just, to me, when they unveiled it, I was like, this is awesome, and this is what if. This, honestly, it's what they should try and adopt all throughout. The Thunderdome is a great visual spectacle. There's no taking away from that, but I like the CWC even better, honestly, and I think it's paid dividends already for NXT.
Absolutely. I mean, the match with Balor and O'Reilly, you really felt like, no, this kind of has like a shoot fight element to it, kind of like Bloodsport Jace, you could say.
Yeah.
With the grittiness of it, and I love that. I mean, what are your thoughts on other promotions starting to run shows again? We've seen AEW over the past like month and a half. They've had live fans back in attendance. What are your thoughts on all of that?
I think you know, outdoor shows are key. Closed set shows, you know, like that we do at Prime Time Live, but the protocol being followed is the main thing. I get tested every week before I go down to do Prime Time Live, which, by the way, is Tuesdays on in-demand pay-per-view and Fight TV. So, you know, be sure to check that out. And it's been just top tier pro wrestling that they've given you at Prime Time Live. It's been a lot of fun to be a part of. But as long as protocols are being followed, you know, and people are being safe and being respectful and being responsible, I'm all for it, because, you know, there are people that are not wrestlers that are still working and everything like that. So this idea that, you know, you just can't do it, it doesn't really necessarily click for me. But again, you have to be smart about it and you have to be responsible about it. And so if you're a promoter and you want to run shows, you know, you have to demand, you know, those positive tests. You have to have mask protocols in place and things like that. And that's everywhere, you know, the Primetime Live, they have all those things in place. They take every precaution to make sure that people are safe. And that's the whole point, because look, if I've learned anything during this, it's how important entertainment is, you know, during the shutdowns, that people need that. And people, you know, you see things like Tiger King or The Last Dance become cultural touchstones because people are dying for entertainment. And
or The Last Ride.
Yeah, or The Last Ride, absolutely. And they took that weird break right in the middle of it, which I was not a fan of. Like, come on, you got a captive audience here. But yeah, stuff like that. So, you know, running shows, obviously it's going to be incrementally as we're starting to hopefully kick out of the COVID-19 pandemic and stuff like that, knock on whatever this is made of. But you have to be smart about it. And, you know, I know I've seen some stuff in the news about, you know, shows that have been run with positive tests coming out and things like that. And, you know, I just hope that they were responsible and smart about it. I'm not going to jump the gun and point the finger, and because look, this is a pandemic. This thing is everywhere. So stuff can happen. If you're going to run a show, you have to have super buttoned up protocols about it.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen places that have truly excelled at running shows. I mean, you look at Japan; they're uh, almost back to full capacity, quite a bit, somewhat. I mean, you
Yeah.
look at the G1. Like if you've seen clips, or if you've watched the whole thing, like it feels like New Japan. You know, like you don't get caught up in, oh, there's not really people there, because there actually are people there.
Yeah.
You know, but that's a completely
Well,
different
that's
government.
almost a whole macro level discussion because of how
Yeah,
Japan dealt with the pandemic versus, how maybe we did.
yeah, yeah.
So
We don't get political here. We don't.
yeah, for sure.
No, but I mean, it's just it's like, hey, we could be here
Yeah.
if we just get down to business and really take this thing even more seriously than we already do, you
Yeah.
know. But I want to talk about who's been the MVP of this era. Is it wrong to say Roman Reigns?
It's not. It's actually, when you sort of kick that over in my mind here at the top of the show, it was like, God, Roman Reigns is the quintessential guy that, like, to make a sports analogy, it's like he's come on really strong here down the stretch in the pennant race and everything like that, because Roman Reigns reinventing himself into the tribal chief and everything like that. Has been phenomenal. And I think it is sort of vindication for a lot of the people that were begging for them to turn Roman heel and everything like that. But what I will say is, if they had done it sooner, maybe it wouldn't have been as effective. I don't necessarily believe that, but there's an argument to be made that the people had almost like given up on the idea that they would ever do it. And so when they finally did, it was like, oh my God. And even more impactful. But yeah, Roman Reigns has been terrific. I think the logical conclusion to this story is, you got to me, like, this is what I've been telling everyone, the promo writes itself. Roman, you are sitting at the head of the table in a mansion that The Rock built, and you do Roman Reigns versus The Rock at WrestleMania in the main event, whether it's for the title or not, doesn't matter. And you have to have Roman Reigns go over there to really just solidify this tribal chief character. He definitely has been very strong, but to me, the MVP of the pandemic era has been Randy Orton. I think he has been that damn good. Randy has these, Randy is one of the all-time greats, like, no doubt about it. But he has these moments where he hits rarefied air, where he, really gets on a roll with his character and everything, and he gets to that Austin level type stuff. And I think this reprise of the Legend Killer, his feud with Edge, all of that stuff has been, that level. I can only imagine the reaction that he would be getting if we had crowds. Like the greatest wrestling match ever, which I thought was, like, when Charlie Caruso first said it, I thought I was going to throw up in my mouth a little bit because I thought it sounded so stupid. And not since the Iron Man at WrestleMania 12, where they were calling it like the greatest athletic spectacle ever. Not since then have they put so much pressure on themselves. And not since then have they delivered so closely to what they promised it would be. Because was it the greatest wrestling match ever? No, but it was good enough to where that billing wasn't stupid. And it was good enough. And it was a stroke of genius creatively to have Randy Orton win that match. So now he can puff his chest out and say, well, since I won the greatest wrestling match ever, I'm the greatest wrestler ever. To me, like, that was like chef's kiss, like, wonderful creative. And Randy Orton is just, to me, he's been the MVP of this whole thing.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I want to really touch on Randy Orton right there. Oh, pause. Pause. I mean, you look at it like people say, "Oh, he's boring." You're like, no, man, don't let these headlocks fool you. This guy, when he can turn it on, he's at another level. And you look at the greatest wrestling match ever. I mean, it was just an homage to it was a love letter to wrestling. You have the MSG mic come down, you hear Finkel's voice, you had the piped in crowd music, and for him to win that match, and he was accompanied by Flair at the time, like, I won the greatest wrestling match ever. I'm accompanied by the guy that people think is the greatest wrestler ever, but really, I'm the greatest wrestler ever. It was beautiful, and he's really excelled, and like attacking these legends and then feeling remorse, like, look what you made me do. I care about you too much. Look what you had me to do. Kind of along the lines what Roman's doing with Jey Uso. Like, you're my family. I love you, but I'm gonna whoop your ass to let you know that who's the head of this table.
It's funny. The thing that Roman's character reminds me of is the movie Training Day, which I don't know if you've seen it or not, but like there's essentially these scenes in, like, these like all these like gangsters house and stuff like that. And, talk like essentially the kind of person that would, threaten to kill you one day and then act like it's all good at the barbecue the next day and be like, whoa, no, like we're not good. Like you had a shotgun in my mouth, dude. So that's sort of what I look at with Roman with this character. And it is working brilliantly.
Absolutely. I'm waiting for when we have like actual fans back in attendance and he's still doing the tribal chief thing and they try to cheer me. He's like, nah. Y'all didn't start cheering me until I came back from leukemia. Don't be fake with me. Like something like that, man.
So that is an excellent point that I'm glad you brought up. So one of the strengths that they have here with no crowd is that they get to tell us again who is good, who is bad. And so if there is any drawback to the wrestling fans or audiences, is sometimes they do revolt and don't go along with necessarily the script of like the good guy versus the bad guy kind of deal. But this has allowed, these shows, AEW, WWE, whoever, being able to straight up tell us who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. This is the story we're telling. And that's a very powerful thing. And so I hope that, wrestling fans, when they do come back, maybe they go along with it a little bit more again. When I was going to shows, like maybe I liked, somebody more than John Cena or just to throw out a name or whatever. But if I'm sitting around kids, like I would cheer for John Cena or whoever, because like I want them to get the experience that I had as a kid, and to sort of have that sort of like, it is like, as much as like wrestlers are passing down, like, how to be in the locker room, in the ring, and respect and everything like that. I do feel like a wrestling fan, there is a certain amount of responsibility to sort of show a little bit of respect for the show. It's not about you. Now, you're part of it. And we've seen that in the pandemic era, that wrestling fans are a big part of the wrestling presentation and stuff like that. But there's a responsibility that comes with that. They're like, hey, maybe cheer for the baby face that's working his tail off to try and, it's hard to be a baby face. It's like, getting to be a heel is much cooler. But, so hopefully they can go along with it a little bit more.
No, absolutely, 100%, man. I mean, I think in the early stages of the pandemic era, like I think like I said, MVP. I thought he was the MVP in the Performance Center. Making Bobby Lashley feel really important, making Shelton Benjamin feel important, where he would just smile on
giving
TV
Shelton something to do, who's great,
Absolutely, and then like when Ali revealed he's the leader of Retribution, which that's a whole other thing. When like MVP's facial expression, like, oh my god, this guy's so good too.
Yeah, and what a surprise too, because he sort of was given mixed signals about what his role was going to be with the company at all. Like, did he retire after facing Rey Mysterio and all this stuff? But he has shown himself to be just so talented, and I'm very happy for MVP, because he was always, during that first brand split era, one of my favorite guys. His feud with Matt Hardy was tremendous stuff, just really creative. So I'm happy to see him have a resurgence.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like you said, he's half man, half amazing.
Absolutely.
I mean, what have you thought about like who's been some MVPs in like other promotions?
Orange Cassidy in AEW is certainly a Darby Allin, I think, as well. I was just talking in the Wrestling War Room that I think on the AEW broadcast, I think Tony Schiavone has been the MVP of that broadcast. I just think he's done really well for himself. Jericho continues to just be at the top of his game. So it's very easy to throw out Chris Jericho. But in looking at AEW, I love the fact that they are making new stars in Orange Cassidy and in Darby Allin and guys like that. So that's who I would point to there for sure.
I mean, I'll throw Britt Baker's name out there.
Yeah.
I mean, the role model vignettes, her in the wheelchair, getting mad at Rebel, Reba, whatever her name is, her stuff with Tony Schiavone. I think she's really been able to develop a character which people thought she didn't really have, like when they first signed her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, she's become a dastardly heel, and I love that. And I mean, if you look at other promotions, Heath, who was Heath Slater in WWE, he's been doing some good work on Impact and stuff like that. So
happy for him too. I wish that WWE had seen more in him to keep him on, because I just do think he is such a great talent, and I think you saw that in that return that he had on Monday Night Raw with Drew McIntyre. Like, that was some some strong stuff. So I'm happy that he is thriving in Impact though as well.
Hey, it's okay. He has to complete the trifecta. Gender did it. Drew did it. He's next.
Yeah, hopefully, man, because he's good.
Give it 2 to 3 years. He's next. So, I mean, for you, what has been the show of the year without fans? Like, take away Rumble, take away Revolution, take away Takeover Portland. What's been the show of the year?
Take Over in Your House is my favorite pandemic era show. In Your House is so the little inside baseball on in the click, which Baby Huey and I started, but all of the imagery, all of the sort of like marketing appeal behind it and came from my mind's eye that like, dude, In Your House was such a fun time in pro wrestling for me and for a lot of people. And so like to resurrect that sort of like imagery, I was like, okay, so called In the Click, which is an obvious reference to Shawn Michaels and the Click and everything, who I'm a huge mark for, and yourself as well. So love that. And some of his greatest standout performances, in the early going of his career happened on In Your House. And so for NXT to resurrect the In Your House brand, I loved it. I love that set. I hope they do it every year because it's such a unique setting now. I think they could do In Your House every year. They can do some cool stuff off the roof like they've done in the past, and just the Johnny Gargano homage to Doc Hendricks. And there was just so much fun to be had. And there was great wrestling too. So I loved that show. That was my favorite one of the pandemic era. And I think a lot of the pay-per-views, a lot of the shows have been really, really good too. But I'll take In Your House. I'm very excited for Halloween Havoc, and I know it's not a takeover, but I love Halloween Havoc, so I'm very excited for that and to see Shotzi host it.
I hope they bring that set back. That's probably my favorite WCW set ever. I'm like, yo, this is cool.
Yeah, and I love Halloween 1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like I've liked like Stadium Stampede. That was fun. Kind of just like the Firefly Funhouse stuff like that. I think that was really cool. I can't really pick a certain show yet. I'd really have to do some more reflecting on that. But yeah, man. I mean, In Your House, that was great. And whenever we have WrestleMania Access again, let that be on the floor. You could walk through it. I think that'd be cool.
No doubt about it. And I'm surprised I'm honestly surprised it took them that long to do it. But I think now NXT has found this interesting formula, which is like, they brought back In Your House. They brought back Great American Bash. They're bringing back Halloween Havoc. I think we're going to see more things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Bash at the Beach at some point, kind of deal. Like, have some fun with it. Like, one of the things I miss the unique pay-per-view sets and all that stuff. So like that helps with the presentation a lot. I would rather have a theme for a pay-per-view, like set wise, than a stipulation theme, like a la Hell in a Cell or TLC or what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just waiting on NXT Sold Out.
Yeah, don't be surprised. NXT Hog Wild could happen.
NXT Super Brawl, NXT Sin.
Well, maybe not Sin. Let's read.
Oh yeah, let's do that. Let's do it all, man.
No. The classics though are great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's gonna wrap it up, man. Jimbo, thank you so much for coming on, man. Thank you for celebrating 200 episodes with us. It's been a pleasure, bud.
Hey, anytime you need anything, you know where to find me. I always love coming on, and congrats again on 200 episodes. That is a milestone. Don't let anybody tell you different. I appreciate the grind and hustle that you put into it. So good job, buddy.
Absolutely. I know every time I talk to you, it's going to be a good time because we're Sean guys here.
That's right. Hell yeah, dude.
Absolutely. Brett screwed Brett.
And Sean won. He tapped. I saw it.
Hey, absolutely. Thanks, Jimbo.
See you, buddy.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back. I mean, wow, Jimbo gave a lot of great insight. We talked a lot of WWE. I'm sorry, Cindy and Brandon, for that. We didn't mean to. We really didn't.
It's okay.
We just kept going. We're WWE guys. We're sorry. We apologize.
No, it's all good. I mean, you're WWE positive, and like for me, I'm like New Japan positive.
Oh, I mean, you didn't listen back in the day, but I said very negative things about New Japan Pro Wrestling. But it's okay. Our Japanese viewership went up like 21%, so it was great. Everything worked out. They still should have put the title on Cody, but that's
That I agree also.
There we go. If then
Are
Jerry,
you talking about the G1 show at the Cow Palace back in 2018?
absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. See? Like, I have a lot of people saying, like, oh, your picks are so stupid. I was like, I have logical reason why I picked Cody over Kenny. So
I mean, yeah, I know,
Take
Kenny
a hard
and
pass on that one. Kenny Omega all day.
I mean, he's not even the most talented guy from Winnipeg. That's Chris Jericho, another man that should have won the IWGP title. He should have beat Okada. I would have been happy with it. Jesus. Let's get to the fan mail, ladies and gentlemen. Hootie Who 420.
Hooty hoot.
Who?
She stole your gimmick, brother.
Yeah, I know.
So bloody proud of you, mates. Great job. Keep up the good work. What's next? I don't know, man. Time will tell. Time will tell what's next for the BC. Alfie Lewis. Hey, man, it's nice to see a person of color doing their thing and putting a shine on black talent in the wrestling business. Keep up the good work, man. And do you guys have any behind the scenes or on the road stories for us? Well, there's young boy number 2. Ulysses' van broke down and Brandon and I were stranded in Daly City for a little bit, like 50 minutes until I order an Uber and we almost die in said Uber.
At
Yeah.
11 o'clock at night.
Oh, it was later than that, dude. I didn't get home till like 1. Yeah. So,
Well, that's because someone wanted to save some extra money and did Uber carpool, and yet
Well,
there's only one spot in the car, but yet they were driving all over Daly City to find someone else.
Okay, so for those of you that haven't heard the story, let's get into it real quick.
Do tell. This
So,
is new to me.
It's September of 2018. I forget what APW show it is.
Ballin.
Yeah, that might have been it. I'm interviewing Jeff Cobb that night. So I'm in interview mode, and Ulysses tells me his car broke down or something. I'm like, wait, what? Anyway, he gets it started, picks me up, picks up Brandon, and so he stops.
And let me tell you, he doesn't tell me this until after the car breaks down.
I wasn't paying attention. so we're going to the Pekeli Event Center, and Ulysses just has to get a rock star. So he gets a rock star by Brandon and I, a Bang 0 Calorie Boys. And so his car doesn't start. And I'm like, what? And then we're like, oh, you know what? Just come back at intermission and check on us. So we start walking down the hill and I look at the car and I'm like, hey, no, it's not here. It was at the Bayshore Community Center for the Boys and Girls. And that's all the way like across town. And I'm
so people who don't know, we basically parked at a gas station around the corner, like a 5-minute walk. And then it wasn't that actual place. It was actually like a 20-minute drive further into the city.
Absolutely. So order an Uber, we get there. And so we're watching the show, and Ulysses always has earbuds in his ears. He drives with them, everything. And, the bunkhouse stampede or something's going on, right? And he wouldn't move. And, like, Sin Brody or Kazarni, he, like, almost hits me like a trash can full of garbage and stuff. And then Ulysses wouldn't move again. And in a triple threat, a dude gets flung into me and hits my leg. And he breaks character. He's like, bro, you good? I'm like, I'm okay, bro. Anyway, we do the interview. Everything comes out fine there. We get back to his van. Just won't start. We're spending like 30 minutes. I'm trying. Brandon's trying. Ulysses is trying to start. It's not working.
Also, is this also the same show where I interviewed Reno Scum? I think this is.
Yes.
Yes. A lot of great stuff happened on that show. On that night.
Oh my God. I know some little kid said he loved my work. I was like, oh man, you want an autograph? And he was like, no, and ran away. It was great. Yeah. So anyway, where are we? Yeah. We're all trying to start the car. It's not working. And I'm like, all right, he doesn't have insurance. I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. I mean, I had a car once that didn't have insurance, but I didn't have these kind of problems. Anyway, so he doesn't have insurance. He calls his parents and they're not going to come help him. He's like, Mama, it's not my fault. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then so I make a decision. You know what? I order an Uber, pool, trying to save a couple bucks. I should have done the XL. And anyway. So this lady just has her friend riding around in an Uber with her at night. And I'm like, it's a pool. So, and then somebody else orders the same Uber. I'm like, where are they going to sit? We got like bags and stuff in here. And I'm a hefty boy. Brandon's a little thickum. And I was like, so where's this other person going to sit? And it smelled like Mediterranean food and ketchup. It just smelled weird. Anyway, so that person cancels. So she flips a biatch and drives on the freeway. And she almost misses the exit to get to Chabot and Hayward, and we almost like get hit by a car and die. We hop in Brandon's Jeep. He drives me up to my house. I'm at home for like 15 minutes. I get a call from Ulysses. Hey man, found out I did have insurance. My mom and dad came and helped me. I'm like, that's fantastic, bro. I'll see you in class on Monday. Yeah.
Wow.
Nevertheless, I drove to the rest of the shows after that.
Yeah. Thank God, Jesus.
And that
Jack
was the
of all-
one time I didn't drive to the show.
Oh wait, no, Tyner used to drive us.
And the other guy, one time, who had
And-
some questionable song choices, I will say.
I don't even remember them. I was like 3. I don't even remember them. All right, Jack of all trades. When it comes to listening to podcasts, I look for a couple things: good content, charisma, and an escape from reality. You guys got that. Thanks for the escape. Congrats. I appreciate it, bud. That's awesome. Dan, I've always enjoyed this show from the days of the other guy. Oh, there you go, Mitchell. On forward.
Kayfabe.
I mean, I already broke it with the young boy. It's okay. Congrats. Hope you guys have 200 more. You bet your ass we're going to have 200 more. Hootie Hoo 420 again.
Woo-hoo!
Brandon, you got to be quicker, bud. Got to be quicker at the draw.
I'm saying in the girly voice.
That's how he says
Like,
it. He says, hey, mates, how did... Hold on. He
there you
says,
go.
hey, mates, how did you guys meet? I don't think I've ever heard the story. I've known Brandon for it's been 5 years. It's crazy. We had a television class together at Chabot. I talked about wrestling. He said, oh, I watch it. Maybe I'll see you at the show. And here we are 5 years later doing podcasts together. That's just
You had
about
your
it.
own little clique, and I was all alone. And I was like, they like wrestling. I'll say something stupid, and then I said something, and then I move on to SF State. And then he texts me one day like, oh, bro, I'm doing this podcast. Do you want to do it? And I was like, sure, whatever. And this was like, what, episode 2? And so I check it out the first time. And I distinctly remember the very first episode. It was the first episode. You didn't know what you were doing. There was like 30 minutes of dead air space at the very end of the podcast. But, we're getting better. We're getting better with the editing. And then I never left.
Absolutely. If you listen to that on our Patreon, Bullycast on
You
Patreon.
still have that?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
first episode is there. You can listen to it for I forget how much I put it up there for. And Brightest Day X, Mr. X.
Shout out Mr. X.
Yes, he gave us a video too.
Oh my god.
That's great. I'm gonna throw that up on our Instagram. He says, first off, congrats on 200 episodes. Now, this is a lot of questions, guys, and comments. So here we go.
I mean, that's what Mr. X does. He sends us the thought-provoking questions.
He fills it out. Absolutely. When did you guys start out doing this, and what was the number goal you had in mind? I started February 7th, 2017. It's been 3 years. We're coming up on our 4th. It's going to be fantastic. I didn't have a set number of goals and episodes in mind. It just kept coming. They just kept going and going and going. I mean, Brandon's been here. It's been a great ride. It really has, and I'm very fortunate and blessed to have this guy do these shows with me because I couldn't do this alone, guys. I'm being serious. You need a dance partner. You need a dance partner. Every week, it's like Taker and Sean. 25. We just knock it out of the park. Yes,
And I'm
sir?
Sean, right?
Oh no,
Carrying it.
no. I mean, you don't want to be Taker. You don't want to be married to Michelle McCool.
I mean, she's cool. She's McCool.
Hey now, there we go. All right. He also says, when you started doing the, oh wait, no, I just read that one. Was there a certain episode or an interview you did where you thought, hey, we're onto something here? Oh man. I don't remember episodes that well, except like the Young Boy and stuff like that.
I will remember. I'll throw out one more. When we used to do them at Chabot, we had the Bite Club come over, and not saying it was good, not saying it was bad. It's just very different. That's another one that stands out. I'm pretty sure the video is there somewhere.
Absolutely. I just interviewed Bike Club member Tony Vargas. Check out his story. His comes back from a career-ending injury. It's fantastic. Yeah, the Bike Club, and they bit my face. How could I forget?
Best way you can do that.
Oh yes, that absolutely. Interviews. Do we have a favorite interview, Brandon? Do you?
The Abyss interview.
Never saw the light of day. I mean,
Great guy. Love Abyss. Good brother.
Abyss, he was great. He was fantastic. Really solid dude. Yeah, that's his next question. Out of all the interviews, which has been your favorite so far? Kelly, that was huge for us this year, which seems like an eternity ago. I mean, she was super chill, super cool about it. So I thank her. I thank Barbie for that. I thank Mike Millerick for that, getting us in there. Chris Van Vliet, he's been on the show a couple of times, and he, for somebody that's always that busy and he's the king of wrestling interviews, for him to take time to do this show, that's awesome. Keita Murray, that's probably one of my real favorites. The orange soda guy, the Kel Mitchell wrestler guy. It was just so conversational. We talked about his upcoming. We talked about music. We talked about Biggie Smalls. We wrapped a little bit of it, So interviews like that where people really just get comfortable and get to tell their story, I love that. I absolutely love that 100%. Because even though I'm the constant, it's not about me. It's about the person who I'm interviewing. West Coast Design, he designed the beautiful Bullet Cast Championship. I loved getting him on here. Didn't know he was a rapper back in his past life. So stuff like that, you get those little hidden gems. All right. He also says, if pro wrestling did not exist, what would you have started a podcast about something else you love? Well, I do another podcast, Complex Conversations. I've done quite a few. It's like my 5th, 6th, 7th podcast. I don't know. I've done so many. Yeah, I mean, I do have other interests and I've put them out there, but I don't know, man. I don't know if I would do podcasting if wrestling didn't exist. What about you, Brandon?
Well, as you would know, as Mr. X would know, he's a weekly question sender for Curveballs and Chair Shots. We do sports and wrestling. So as much as I love wrestling, to be honest, I think sports might be my first love, but I love talking sports just as much as I love talking wrestling.
Cindy, what about you?
Well, I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos, especially like when it released. I would like talk about my thoughts and opinions about like anything like pop culture related, especially when it comes to YouTube, like anything in a different community when it comes to like the beauty community to the whole like family vlogging community, and especially this whole kind of like the drama channel aspect where they're talking about scandals that's going on within different communities on YouTube. Besides that, I'm probably going to be talking about like my thoughts and opinions about like, the state of the world or like anything that is like in the trending topic on Twitter, because like I'm pretty much consumed when it comes to this whole pop culture, when it comes to celebrities, music, and movies, but in a video forum instead of like in a podcast, because I'm kind of like more comfortable like in videos than on podcasts, even though I'm like getting more used to this whole like podcasting aspect.
Absolutely, 100%. He has 3 more, so here we go. What has been the most challenging part of podcasting process you've noticed after 200 episodes? Just getting the word out there, man. Really, like just building a following. Now, I've been recognized at a couple APW shows. Like, hey, aren't you? I'm like, yeah. I mean, that's cool. That's awesome. It really is. But just getting the word out there, to where like I want multiple likes and views on episodes and posts and stuff like that. I want people to know this brand. Me as a person, I could give a shit about having like followers or whatever. I could have no followers and still be on social
You're
media.
saying this whole time I could have been cussing?
It's episode 200. Go right ahead, brother.
That's a little too late now.
You'll get worked up over something. You always do. But yeah, I mean, like just getting the word out there, letting people know this brand, and looking at the analytics. Having listens in Canada and Japan and Egypt and Croatia and just all these other random places, Ireland, Abu Dhabi, Shanghai. It's crazy. It really is, and I'm very thankful for that. Thank you to the nation for listening, and spread the word. Let people know what we do here. We talk wrestling, we talk sports entertainment. We just want to have a good time. Who do you have on your bucket list for interviews? Oh man.
Wow.
I mean, Cindy, if you were to do an interview for the show, who would you want?
Well, oh man, there's so much to like narrow down to. I would say the number one interview I would like love to interview would have to be, of course, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. I would love to interview, especially the fact that I did actually met him twice back in 2017 in Canada. Might as well, interviewing him, like asking him a couple questions and like saying who he is as a person, besides Cody, but also Brandy, which I actually get a chance to meet with her on the AEW Heels event. So that was kind of like a very like awesome moment. I want to talk to her like, what is it like to be the boss lady of AEW, especially being the chief brand officer, and like how she is like setting up with like the different like the whole AEW heels concept and everything all together. So Cody and Brandy Rhodes definitely would be on the top of the tier list.
Absolutely. Chief Brandon Officer. What about you, bud?
Well, I mean, if we go back, we've done like our favorite wrestlers of all time. So you probably would know who my number one would be. Maybe me and Baby Huey. We team up. We do a Stone Cold interview. You and Bimbo Jimbo can team up and do a Stone Cold or a Shawn Michaels interview. But another one, as much as I kind of dog on him, the big dog, Vince McMahon. I mean, as much as I'll bag on him. I think he's kind of one of those guys that if you ever would like to give him truth serum and like write a book or do a podcast or interview, I mean, the stories that man could tell are endless. And then just kind of throw it out there. A 2-for-1, a CM Punk, AJ couples duet interview right there.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, there's so many, man. Like, I'm a Sean guy. I'd love to sit down with him. Taker's doing interviews now. If we could get him, that'd be cool. I mean, Codester, that's probably my dream interview because, like when I first started podcasting, I wrote down questions to ask him because he was coming to APW. All those questions are out the window now. He's done so much. There's All In, there's AEW, there's becoming the prince of pro wrestling. There's all that stuff, and I mean, just a genuinely good person. I've had quite a few interactions with him, had scars with him at StarCast last year. Just a good human being. But I mean, Vince, for anybody that does wrestling interviews, that's the goal. I mean, people talk about Walt Disney, Stan Lee, Dr. Seuss, Bob Kane being these awesome creators. I look at Vince in that same light. I mean, he created the greatest gimmick in the history of this business, The Undertaker. So if I could interview Vince, that would be a dream come true. Hell, if I could even just meet Vince, have just like a 5-minute conversation with him, that'd be absolutely amazing, And then lastly, he says, what can the BC Nation expect for the next 200 episodes? I think a better product, better content, more interviews. I have a goal in mind, and I'm gonna mark it here. On our 316th episode, I would like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Absolutely, 100%. I think that's obtainable because I didn't think I would be able to get Kelly Kelly. I didn't think I would be able to even interview any of this talent in the Bay Area. I mean, my first one was Chris Masters. You can go back and watch it. It's absolutely terrible, but I want bigger names. I want to make this connection with certain companies and brands and stuff like that. Just get the name out there. So episode 316, I would love Steve Austin, man. That's it. That is it. So with all that being said, that was a lot of fan mail. Jesus. So what do you guys feel about other promotions putting on shows again? Brandon.
I mean, as I've said on this show and in shows in the past, I'm more skeptical and more weary of shows getting back into it, and not exactly like empty arena shows, but definitely more with like the fans, because as much as I want wrestling and life in general to be normal, we kind of gotta shut it down and make sacrifices and do all the stuff. Don't want to get too political and everything like that, but Cindy talking about New Japan, I kind of forgot to bring them up, but with Japan kind of having their shit together a little more than the United States. There you go. See, I got worked up over something. They're allowing a lot more fans in their arena, and I mean watching New Japan, it's like really fun, not only because of the in-ring product, but just because it brings a sense of normalcy. Now they can't yell verbally because they have like rules and stuff like that. But, New Japan, I think is definitely like the standout right now because they're able to they're overseas. So they have their own laws compared to us here in the United States and states having different laws and everything like that. But I mean, now we're getting to the flu season and we're starting to see some things pick back up again. So unfortunately, I think it's going to be quieter right now than what it was back in the summertime.
Cindy, what about you?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to agree with that as what Brandon's saying too, because it looks like some of the shows is probably gonna be like slowing it down a bit. I know with New Japan Pro Wrestling, just to continue on with like some of the tournaments like the World Tag League and the Best of Super Junior, and they're getting ready for the road to the Tokyo Dome. Then Wrestle Kingdom 2-night event next year, first ever pay-per-view of 2021. I just think that like with New Japan Pro Wrestling, there's kind of like the forefront of setting like a prime example of how they are running the show during this COVID era. Now with like the fans are wearing a face mask and cannot chant because of like a transmission, even though the mask does protect from airborne content, but still it can transmit it. So that's why they're allowing fans to do the claps and the stomp, which it was pretty entertaining. But then again, you think of like other promotion like AAA Wrestling. I know they started with the Empty Arena show, but then they took a couple months break until they actually did something that is kind of like what some of the independent wrestling company did like back in the summer, is actually a drive-in show they've done. The only thing I would say that's kind of like slightly annoying is the constant honking of the horn, like from each of the different cars, like during each of the match. Like I'm trying to watch the women's match and all I can hear is like, beeping and beeping. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's a little bit too much for it.
Just think of them like the Vuvuzelas down in Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that being said, like, I know they're trying their best to restart like some of the shows during this difficult time, but then at the same time, the main thing they got to take care of is just, the health. GCW, I know they're like kind of like the first independent wrestling show they restarted like a couple months ago, and I know they did take like proper precaution, like doing an outdoor show, have people wearing masks, social distancing, and they actually disinfect each of the match until we have the collective, which is kind of like a little bit of like a somewhat of a bad example, especially like one of the notable show, Joey Janela Spring Break 4, that kind of receives backlash because you have a couple of the talent and some fans got tested positive for COVID too. And then like from there on, like some other independent wrestling companies, like they were supposed to be having shows, but then they had to like completely cancel it until like they died down. So all it matters is just like based on like precaution, and also just like, when they're gonna have to like make sure to be more mindful and be more careful to like with that. I'm glad like MLW and Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling are still continuing on with the Empty Arena show, which is just, the only safer way, even though it doesn't even feel the same to not have the audience. But I think it's just like, health always comes first, and especially for the lives of like the talent and the staff.
Absolutely.
Well, if I'm going to be very selfish right here.
Okay.
Are we going to be able to go back to Las Vegas for Double or Nothing Memorial Day weekend?
I hope so, dude. I mean, we got to party it up in Vegas. You and I, we didn't see each other that much. We saw each other like maybe twice in passing. I want to see Brandon, get white girl wasted.
That's not very hard.
Yeah, I do miss traveling.
Oh man,
I think you want to see Dominic get white girl wasted.
I probably do, and we could talk about our love of Jeff Hardy while we're sharing mimosas or something. I don't know. I'm going to switch things up on the schedule right here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to throw it to my conversation with my good buddy. He's the heart and soul of 107.7 The Bone radio station here in the Bay Area, Baby Huey. Ladies and gentlemen, Bulletcast 200 keeps rolling on. My guest right now is the king of the ITK. He's the heart and soul of 107.7 The Bone, Baby Huey. Welcome to Bulletcast 200, brother.
Wow. Thank you so much, man, for having me on. I feel so honored, and congrats to you and everyone else involved.
Thank you, man. I mean, I wouldn't have made this if Brandon didn't stick by me, I mean, I probably, if I had discovered Smokey a lot sooner, maybe I would have made it this far. R.I.P. to Smokey, by the way.
R.I.P., man, my favorite co-host of the Bulletcast. I'm kidding, Brandon. I'm kidding. Sarcasm. I'm kidding. He is not it. It's an it. It's not a real human. Smokey is not real.
When I put up that photo that Smokey won the Bulletcast title, he was a little ticked off.
I worry about Brandon sometimes. Like I feel like, I mean, if there wasn't a pandemic, I would take him out, a night on town. I really want to see him like loosen up, party it out. Like we got to take him out, like just throw a big party, and I want to see him like let loose, like in a Hangover. Like we do our own version of the Inner Circle, going to like to Las Vegas, but we the point being is to like get Brandon out of his shell.
Brandon, I mean, when we're at the wrestling shows, you probably don't hear it, but like he's charismatic, man. We don't see it on the show, but he is charismatic.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. But Brandon, one of these days we're gonna party it up, man. I want to see a side of you that I've never seen before. Like I said, I want to get you out of your shell, brother. Break it in half.
Step into a Slim Jim. Oh yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Seriously, man, thanks for coming on Ep.200, man. Coming on this milestone with me.
Absolutely, of course. Anything you need, I'll be there for you. So, like I said, I feel truly honored. And congrats once again. 200 episodes. I mean, come on, real talk. Like, listen, I know you got some questions and stuff, but okay. In the podcasting world, we know there's a lot of competition now. There's a lot of podcasts that exist that are trying to fight for everyone's attention, for their eyes, their ears, for their attention. It's a lot of competition to put up with, and let alone in the wrestling podcast world, there's a lot of them out there. Everyone trying to do their own thing, which respect everyone. I know there's a lot of great shows out there, but and there's a lot of them that have come and gone and don't exist for a super long period of time. So for you to consistently dish out great audio content and also video content on the YouTube page, subscribe to Bulletcast on YouTube. But for 200 episodes, that is amazing. So congrats once again for all that hard work.
Thank you, brother. I mean, when I first started this, I'm like, okay, if I get 10, that's cool. Then we got to 50, and I'm like, okay, 100, I'll take a break. And then, like, for 200 weeks, we have not taken a break. Every week we've put out content. Sometimes we put out multiple episodes within a week with, pay-per-view recaps and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Man. So we've been on the grind for the past 3.5 years. It's been a wild ride, and I love it.
I was just gonna say, how many years? So 3.5. Wow.
Yes, February 7th. That is the anniversary.
Wow. So 1 week before Valentine's Day.
Absolutely. It's my Valentine.
There you go. It's awesome.
With all that being said, man, let's jump right into it. So
okay.
The general consensus of this episode is wrestling in the pandemic era, how it's fared for different people. And so how's it been for you, man? I mean, like, we've seen WWE move into the Thunderdome and like the latter part of the pandemic, but at the very beginning, like, what was it like for you? Like, you can't go to a wrestling show anymore. WWE is changing drastically. So is AEW. Other promotions like MLW and Ring of Honor and New Japan, they shut down for quite some time. What's it been like for you, man?
Wow. It's been a lot of emotions. I'll say that. And it's been an interesting experience that I will never forget, and it will go down in the history books, not only the pandemic, but in the wrestling history books, if that. It's been tough. I mean, from like the local scene, I miss going to independent wrestling shows, just a way of seeing live in talent, all the great performers here in the Bay Area, all the upcoming talent, but also all the traveling independent wrestlers that come here and perform, all the veterans and big names that they do bring out here. It's a great way to meet people that I'm a fan of and like thank them in person, get a photo, an autograph, something. But hang with your fellow wrestling fans, peers, friends, family. It's like very much, I've said this before in the past, like the local wrestling independent scene is very much like the local music scene where we all support each other. I go to a bunch of local shows for years supporting local bands and music, and the camaraderie of the bands that you meet and become friends with, but also all the family and friends and fans of all these bands. You get to know everyone. So it's a fun local scene that we truly enjoy meeting up together and whatnot. So that same vibes, the energy, all that experience, I get that from going to local wrestling shows, and the fact that I've been able to see so many familiar faces and hang out with my people, my fellow wrestling peers. It's been very tough, and for all of us, we've had a wave of up and down emotions. It can be very depressing at times, and so I miss everyone. I try my best to stay in touch with people via text, phone calls, DMs, liking the posts on Instagram or Twitter, Facebook, interacting, hopefully putting out content, with all our respected podcasts that people can, still feel connected to us and give them some sort of entertainment in the meantime. But as far as wrestling on a more larger scale, I mean, listen, every promotion's been different as far as they handled things. Some have gone into hiatus, like you said. MLW, NWA, Ring of Honor, a lot of them were on hiatus. Some of them are starting to finally come back. MLW more recently, Ring of Honor been coming back and trying to put on shows. But for some companies, WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, they've also been working during this whole time period. And even like New Japan's finally been coming back the last few months. And listen, I know that's very subjective on people on both sides of the fence as far as should they have kept going, should have taken time off, should they have not, some people are happy that they kept going the whole time. For me, I'm just happy that they continue to provide us entertainment and give us something to look forward to every week while the rest of the world seems like in chaos and is a mess and politics and all these other things going on. It's a crazy world out there, and we don't know how things are going to go one way or another day by day, but it's just been nice consistently every week. I can look forward to Monday Night Raw on Mondays, Tuesday with Impact, Wednesday, you got the Wednesday Night Wars between AEW Dynamite and NXT. Friday, you got SmackDown. The weekends, you got different pay-per-views. And more recently, like I said, MLW's back. New Japan's been putting on shows. Ring of Honor's been doing a lot of stuff. They had the Great Pure Tournament. NWA Talent, while they have not been able to put on like NWA Power, they've been able to outsource the talent on other shows like AEW Dynamite. So for me, it's just been nice that I've had that, like I said, that form of entertainment, that one form of things somewhat feeling normal still as far as my weekly wrestling shows that I love to tune in for. And, you know, when I talked to like Drew McIntyre a couple times during the pandemic, he says he takes pride in performing on TV, even though it was like an empty arena or empty performance center. And then they started bringing some fans in, and Thunderdome is still technically empty, but they got the virtual fans there. He still takes honor, and a lot of the majority, or if not all of the WWE superstars, take pride in performing at the Thunderdome and still providing entertainment for everyone who are stuck at home. So thank you to WWE and all the other promotions that have been doing their best to follow the rules, be safe, but still try to provide us entertainment shows during this whole crazy time period. So yeah, a lot of emotions. Sorry, I can go on rambling, but yeah, no, thank you, wrestling, for keeping us sane and entertained during this time period.
Yeah, I mean, like it legit, like NBA shut down, everything shut down, and WWE and AEW, like they were the only game in town. You know, wrestling was the only form of sports and entertainment. Sports entertainment. See what I did there?
Yeah.
That was live, and it was great. Now, speaking of WWE, I mean, WrestleMania was in the Performance Center this year, and you feel bad for guys like Drew McIntyre who had this big moment. They defeat one of the best to ever do it in Brock Lesnar for the top prize in the game in front of no one. But, I mean, the Performance Center, it was okay. I mean, you got to see certain people like up the character level, like a Sasha Banks or a Bayley and an Asuka, and you saw where there weren't any live crowds, where those performers they didn't really fare well in that environment. I mean, you got to hear more of the trash talking, get to really hear the hits and stuff like that. So it worked for that aspect, but then it just kept dragging on, and we were like, you know, SummerSlam's coming up. They desperately need to do something. Lo and behold, the Thunderdome comes about. How do you think the Thunderdome has helped WWE with their product in the last couple months?
It's helped them drastically, because I think we talked about this before. So I think like the first couple months of the pandemic, I think a lot of people were comparing, oh, how's WWE handling the situation compared to like AEW? And a lot of people were saying, oh, AEW is doing a much better job as far as adapting quickly and trying to make the best of this situation. And they lucked out. They had Daly's Place, which is the little amphitheater right next to the Jaguars football stadium. So they had this like venue that they made their home base and like a little TV studio for them to run all their shows and pay-per-views for, at this point, over 8 months now. But so with that being said, I think early on, a lot of people, and then even they had that little time period that they were doing some shows for like 4 or 5 weeks in Atlanta, Georgia, if I remember correctly. Remember that time period? Dynamite was doing some stuff there. So AEW, out of the gates, I think they did a better job adapting. WWE, for whatever reason, they were kind of set in their ways, and I think a lot of people were not liking that presentation of it. But Thunderdome really changed things, and now Thunderdome is arguably the best out of all the shows going on right now, wrestling shows going on. Thunderdome is the best show to watch or setting for a wrestling show to take place in with these current standards or the regulations, the rules that they need to follow. So Thunderdome has been very groundbreaking, and it really, I think, saved WWE as far as the TV product. The ratings were going down. I think a lot of people were getting kind of burnt out between the empty performance center and just hearing like every like noise and cricket and echo. But at least the Thunderdome, they've been able to pipe in noise. They've been able to have the virtual fans there, and they've had the more lights and like the explosions, the pyro, the flying what's the like the flying thing that takes video, the drones, the flying drones with the camera and stuff. So I'm just saying, like, it's been a much better experience for us, the TV viewer, and so it's felt very much close to normal how things were when they were running arena shows. So Thunderdome, like I said, very groundbreaking, and it's gonna be interesting to see how WWE moving forward will try to keep that going until this pandemic keeps going on. So it's been very helpful, and it's really helped set the bar from a presentation level standard compared to all the other shows. It really has shot them to the top in that sense.
Absolutely, man. Because when they started doing that, like Raw, it felt like Raw again. SmackDown felt like SmackDown again. Pay-per-views felt important again.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very, very much needed,
Mm-hmm.
for the viewer and the consumer of their product. Now, I want to talk about other promotions starting to put on shows again, because we've seen like GCW, they did The Collective, and they did, For the Culture, and indie shows like that. Ring of Honor's come back. Impact has figured out a way how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
In Japan, they have actual fans back, but that's a whole other topic for their political climate over there.
Yeah.
And even UGWA, here in the Bay Area,
Mm-hmm.
Anthony, he the runner and promoter of that, he had to put on a show a couple of weeks ago. So I mean, what are your thoughts on all these promotions starting to come back, and MLW, so we can get like a taste of all these other different wrestlers and products?
I'm very happy to see them all start coming back, because I'm sure for multiple reasons. If they're not running shows, they're not making money. So I'm sure it's been very hard for all these promotions outside of the big ones, the little bit smaller ones, that they have been able to perform, the one that make money for the company, to help pay their roster of talent, the wrestlers themselves, to help make some money while they're home. And then with no independent shows going on, a lot of them have been able to make money on the side, wrestling outside of the main promotions they work for. So I'm happy to see that they're starting to come back. And I know the ones, the smaller ones, like MLW, for example, Court Bauer, the owner, he said very early on he wasn't going to run any shows because he just didn't want to risk putting his wrestlers in a harmful situation. He didn't want to risk anything. He wanted to make sure everything was safe. And then I think recently, when they announced the restart, the new fresh set of episodes for their weekly show, MLW Fusion, I think they hired someone to be like their COVID head person, inspector, kind of. I think their main person to kind of run the show as far as making sure they're following all the right health standards and whatnot, and make sure everything's running okay. So I remember seeing that press release. I thought that was cool. They're going to have someone on site to make sure everyone's safe and whatnot. And so for them, I think it's great, because then they get fresh new content for the TV deals that they have in place, and that way they can get the TV money, all that stuff. I mean, it's just nice to get more fresh content, because I'm sure a lot of them, they don't have no new shows to deliver to the TV contracts that they have. And so I'm just glad to see, MLW starting to put on shows again, because they have such an amazing, talented roster that now hopefully with these newer episodes that are coming, it'll start to kind of get some new momentum for them again, because they had a lot of great things going before the pandemic. That's a lot. I worry about a lot of these promotions that lost a lot of momentum because of the pandemic. So now they can maybe jumpstart that. NWA Power, or NWA specifically, it's going to be curious to see how they're going to handle things moving forward. Billy Corgan also was very vocal early on. It's like he didn't. NWA Power, one of the big things about their show, what made it successful, was the in-studio audience that they did it in Atlanta, Georgia. And with the pandemic, they can't have an audience there, so NWA Power would just not feel the same. So he's like, I'm not going to create new episodes until we can have like an actual fan show up. So I understand that. I respect that and his decision. luckily, in the last few months, we've seen members of the roster be able to go out and perform elsewhere. Some of the contracts have expired, so some of those wrestlers have just walked away and signed elsewhere. We've seen a lot. AEW picked up a lot of the NWA roster, and they're starting to make money now. So it's definitely been about a case by case situation for every promotion, how they've handled it, and I respect everyone's decision. Everyone's in a different place as far as where their company's at, as far probably from a money standpoint, how much they can afford. So everyone's situation's different, how they want to handle this pandemic and how to proceed moving forward. So everyone's at a different spot, and so everyone's at a different points where they can like pick up where they left off and start putting on shows again. Nonetheless, I'm just happy to see more of them starting to get shows back going again, and hopefully more. I know some independent wrestling companies have been putting on shows. I know some of them haven't. They just don't want to risk it, and so I respect everyone's decision. It depends on, I think, what part of the country you're in. What kind are you able to afford to have all the right proper settings to put on a show? I think there's a lot of moving parts there. So everyone's in a different boat. I wish in a perfect world everyone can just snap their finger and start putting on shows again. It's a case by case situation. So, but nonetheless, I'm just happy to see little by little as time goes on, we're starting to see more and more of these shows and promotions come back. And so hopefully 2021, as the year picks up, hopefully by next summer, things will be much better in a better direction.
No, man, absolutely, 100%. And you look at the NWA and Billy Corgan, I think he's really found the gold mine for it. His women and his women's championship is featured on AEW pretty regularly.
Mm-hmm.
It's been on Dark and pay-per-views and Dynamite, and then you have the men. They're on Prime Time Live. Nick Aldis defended the NWA title in that first main event against Michael Bennett. And, you've seen their tag title switch hands there, their television championship.
Yeah.
So, the talent sharing, it's the way to go, man, especially during this uncertain time, like WWE likes to call it. Now, as we've gone through, it's been 7 to 8 months since we've been in this pandemic, man.
Yeah.
Who's been the MVP of the pandemic era for you? No, for a certain time, it was Asuka in the Performance Center just yelling in Japanese. That's great. Or Montel Vontavious Porter, MVP himself, no pun intended. When the Hurt Business first debuted, he did great stuff. But then you go over to AEW, Jericho and Orange Cassidy throughout the summer. They worked the program for 3 months and stuff like that.
Okay, man. Are you talking about MVP from each company, one overall?
You could do each company. You could do one overall. Randy Orton became an MVP for quite some time with his whole Legends Killer thing coming back and just kicking guys in the head.
From women's side of things for WWE, yeah, Asuka. I love Asuka. She's been a badass. You think about it. When there was no fans there, and I think the WWE superstars had to really rely on their own performance skills, their charisma. She went out there and was amazing, not only just on the microphone, shouting stuff in Japanese. She did some guest commentary fill-in, which was entertaining. Her segment with Becky Lynch when Becky announced she was pregnant and gave Asuka the championship, saying the Money in the Bank briefcase that you won inside wasn't a contract. It was actually the Raw Women's Championship. And so she became champion. Her stuff with Bayley and Sasha and Kairi Sane leaving the company at that point, that whole angle. But the matches herself, she's one of the best performers ever. Just such a great worker. So she is the total package in so many ways. I think she's amazing and just so entertaining. From the men's side, I love this guy, Drew McIntyre. I think we know his story now, as far as his time in WWE, his first run, his second run, his time outside WWE. So the fact that finally, Vince McMahon's own prediction years ago, 10, 11 years ago, he's going to be a future champion, finally came true. He's been such an amazing WWE champion. And this is coming off the heels of Brock Lesnar, who was kind of part-time, shows up here and there. And so I think I thought 2019 Kofi Kingston was a great WWE champion, but Brock Lesnar, when he was kind of part-time here and there. So I think that left a bad taste in people's mouth. So when Drew McIntyre came, dominating fashion, beat him in less than 5 minutes, became WWE champion, and he's been a badass babyface champion. I think babyface champions over the years in WWE have been booked kind of goofy or not the most smart thinking champions. But he's not only great on the microphone, he's a badass. He took on a bunch of challengers head on, went from one challenger to the next. Great matches, great promos, like I said, hard hitting stuff. I can't say enough good things. And he, like I said earlier, he takes pride in performing for us, the WWE universe, during these tough times. Drew McIntyre, and he's been there every week, showing up, either wrestling, doing promos. I can't say enough good things about Drew McIntyre. He's totally my MVP. From like AEW standpoint, I'm trying to think. Jericho has been consistent. Le Champion, aka the Demo God, aka our best friend, our drinking partner, our party guy when he comes to the Bay Area. He's been consistently there, either when he's doing promos, wrestling, guest commentary himself. His commentary stuff has been amazing. Remember, he did a few weeks with Shivani when they were in Atlanta, and that stuff was so much fun. Very funny stuff. I'm trying to think who else. Cody was gone for a while, so I kind of take him out of the equation in that sense. Moxley has been here or there. Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page, they've both been consistently there, with their whole tag title storyline that was brewing for the longest time. God, who else really stood out from AEW? The women's division's been kind of tough. Oh, I would say Thunder Rosa as well. I think Thunder Rosa has been such a great burst of life and energy for the AEW women's division, even though she was there by way of the NWA. But yeah, so she's been amazing for AEW in the last couple months, is really putting some life into that division. So, there's so many great people. Maybe more towards the end of the year, we could do a full list of people, acknowledging them all. But yeah, there's been some great people who've been showing up every week. I'm trying to think who else in AEW. There's so many I could think of. But yeah, Jericho, obviously, can't say enough great things about the GOAT.
I might have to give it to the whole AEW crew for putting together 5 weeks of TV in a day and a half, in 35 hours, recording all that television. That's impressive. But I know he came back at the latter end. Can we say Roman Reigns here? Can we talk about the tribal chief, the head of the table?
Okay. Don't get me wrong. Since he's been back, his storyline has been amazing, very compelling, entertaining, all the drama and stuff. But but if I'm being just kind of from a more logistic timeline, he left right before WrestleMania and he didn't come back until SummerSlam, when he showed up at SummerSlam at the end. So that was what 4 months, 4.5 months,
5 months,
5 months. So that's a good chunk of the pandemic as far as the timeline's concerned. So that's why I would not necessarily put him at the top. What he's done in the last couple months, awesome stuff. But overall, I look at Drew McIntyre, for example, he's been there the whole time. So that's what sets him apart. That's why he's number one. Roman's number two.
Oh, okay.
I love you, Drew. Drew McIntyre, number one. He is the WWE champion, the number one championship. Oops. Here, let me fix this real quick.
Hey man, I'm rocking with Roman. I want a seat at the table. I want to be sitting next to Jay and Jimmy and Tamina and Naomi and Dwayne if he shows up when he's not shooting a movie. I want a seat at the table.
You just want to sit next to Naomi. That's what you want.
I want to sit next to Tamina if we're being honest.
Really? All right. But no, I'm just saying, Drew McIntyre, WWE champion, the number one championship in that company, the lineage, Austin, Michaels, Bret Hart, Hogan, Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior, Bruno, Eddie Guerrero. The list of people who held that title, that's the number one championship. Therefore, when Drew has it, he's the number one man for WWE. I love you, Drew McIntyre, friend of In the Click, by the way. Check out my interviews with him I did 3 interviews with him this year, so check out Drew McIntyre. Love you.
No, there you go, man. There you go. This is the last question. What for you has been the show of the year? Not the Royal Rumble, not Revolution, no show with fans. I mean, was it the 2-night WrestleMania? Was it AEW's Double or Nothing? Full Gear just happened. It was a pretty solid show.
WrestleMania was very fun because that was, considering the situation at that time, the pandemic was still fairly new. I love that they went 2 nights, and I hope moving forward that is the standard. Wrestle Kingdom in Japan, New Japan, they're doing 2 nights again. For a show that long, in the past it was getting up to 7-8 hours total. Nuh-uh, stop that. Make it 2 nights. Make it a full weekend. I don't know how you can maybe kind of balance it out. Maybe like combine SmackDown on Friday, maybe TakeOver and part of WrestleMania on Saturday, or just don't have TakeOver involved at all. Maybe just have SmackDown Friday, WrestleMania night 1 on Saturday, WrestleMania night 2 on Sunday, Raw on Monday. But make WrestleMania 2 days. But but as far as shows go, Full Gear, AEW Full Gear was really good from a booking standpoint and from the matches. You and I think had a lot of fun watching Double or Nothing, the Stadium Stampede. Man, SummerSlam, WWE SummerSlam this year was really good as well. I mean, Drew McIntyre got a big win over Randy Orton, and I think a lot of people did not think that was going to happen. Man, I mean, NXT, they've been hitting it out of the park as far as taking like old names from like WCW's past or old pay-per-views from WWE's past and rebranding it. In Your House, Halloween Havoc, Great American Bash. Man, I know I'm just listing everything off, not actually picking one.
I mean, man, for me, like I can't pick one yet. I really can't. I think there are certain moments in matches for me, like I love the Stadium Stampede. I love the Firefly Funhouse match because we got it was a career trajectory of Big Match John, and I popped for when Bray was like, "You can look, but you can't touch."
Yeah.
and then once you look at it, you're like, "Oh my God, he really is Hogan, isn't he?"
But SummerSlam was really good because remember it was still that first full weekend of the Thunderdome's debut. So Thunderdome was great as far as hosting SummerSlam. So I say Thunderslam. That's SummerSlam was awesome. So as maybe WWE concerns, I'm kind of leaning towards maybe SummerSlam, AEW, maybe Full Gear for as far as the whole overall quality of the show. Yeah, God. I'm trying to, there were so many. I mean, that's the thing. Like I said, to AEW and NXT credit, they've been doing a lot of like big pay-per-view quality shows on Wednesday nights. So we've been getting a lot of great, just quality shows for a long time now. And so it's been great just for you and I with our podcast and whatnot. So it's tough to narrow it down. But yeah, SummerSlam I really did enjoy, and Full Gear from AEW was awesome.
All right. Well, I think that is going to wrap it up, baby Huey. Thank you so much for coming on episode 200, bud.
Dude, thank you so much. Hopefully you guys found this entertaining. I appreciate you having me on, bringing me on, and in the mix of all this. Like I said, congrats once again to everyone on the Bulletcast for 200 episodes. I respect the hustle, the hard work to be that consistent and just putting all the time in. Respect to you guys for all the interviews you've done. And it doesn't go unnoticed. I can't stress that enough. Please keep it up. The Bay Area wrestling scene needs it. The NorCal wrestling scene needs it. But just wrestling podcasts in general needs shows like you to keep doing your thing. It just gives us all a lot of fresh, great content to look forward to. And it helps in so many ways. It helps promote local shows, the big shows, the talent, independent wrestlers, signed people, all that stuff. So like I said, congrats to everyone for everything, and thank you for everything you guys have done. So here's to 200 plus more episodes of the Bulletcast.
Absolutely, man. I love it. I think we'll get to 1,000, then I'll retire.
Wow. Okay, Undertaker.
We'll see. I'll have more fake retirements than Big Show's had heel turns.
Wow. That's going to be a lot.
I know. Huey, where can the people find you? Where can they find the ITK?
Dude, it's multiple ways. Okay, so for me, Baby Huey specifically. Facebook at Baby Huey Official. Click that like button. Twitter and Instagram at Baby Huey 83. And for In the Click, our wrestling podcast that Phillip is a part of, and my brother Tommy, if you're watching the video version, that's him right there in the background. He's like, remember Tom Green had Tom, who was it in the background? Tom, huh? Phil. So Tommy's like my sidekick, my Ed McMahon back there. Yeah. So, but for In the Click, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Also follow us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Just type in at In the Click. intheclick@gmail.com. Just go to Google, type in Baby Huey, 1077thebone.com. Yeah, follow me at 1077thebone.com as well. The radio station, the rock radio station I work at in San Francisco. And yeah, In the Click, you Google that as well. So yeah, a lot of many ways. I'm all there. Links in bio with all the links to everything else I do. So no, thank you again for all the Bulletcast people for following me along as well.
Absolutely, man. Well, that's going to do it for Baby Huey on Bulletcast, episode 200. And as our good buddy Chris Jericho would say, "Aye, aye." All right, ladies and gentlemen, and we're back. What a great conversation with me and Hubert. Hubert. I'll go listen to the interview I did with him. You know, he tells us how he got his name. That was a great interview also, you know, just him telling his story, because I don't think people have ever heard it. That was awesome. Yeah, Huey had some great insights. You know, we talked a lot of AEW because, you know, I'm the correspondent for the ITK over there. But getting to another question, who do you guys think has been the MVP of the pandemic era, in this pandemic era of wrestling? I want to say Roman Reigns. I really do. I know, look, he was here, He left in March, you know, before Mania happened. He comes back in August, but I mean, he's been the most talked about thing in WWE and probably in wrestling since his return. I know people want to say Orange Cassidy and Jericho and whatever's going on in Japan and the stuff in Impact, but I got to go with Roman. I think he's done it. Now, for the Performance Center, and during those times, you have to throw it to Oscar or MVP. No pun intended for Montel Vontavious Porter, but those people thrive during these certain stages of the pandemic. And I throw it to Randy Orton as well, bringing back elements of the Legend Killer, punting people in the head, you know, stuff like that. It really worked for me.
Look,
Cindy,
you
what about
messed
you?
up my gimmick. I was going to do the MVP thing.
Oh, you were going to do the MVP thing? I'm sorry. Cindy, who do you think's been the MVP of the pandemic era?
Okay, so I'm breaking it down based on promotions. I know you mentioned about WWE. Why? So I'm going to break it down to from AEW, Impact, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. But it's going to be based on male wrestlers, females, tag team stables, and that's it. So for AEW, for the male wrestlers, I actually have, and there's this one person who actually kind of like debuted it earlier this year. And I know that and I'm doing it based on like the ones that started the pandemic, not like, oh, they came back midway because of lower restriction. Only the one that started when the pandemic started. So for AEW, and I'm gonna be biased, I actually put Cody as the MVP for AEW because like I know that like he did involve so much like with commentary and some of the matches, and you have it's the TNT Championship tournament that happens leading up to Double or Nothing. So I have Cody as the MVP of male wrestlers, but then he's also tied with, of course, Le Champion himself, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho, I must say, he did a phenomenal job with commentary for AEW during this whole, like when they did the advanced taping at the Nightmare Factory. So having him on commentary with Tony Schiavone was kind of like, you know, I was very entertained by it too. And especially like, you know, him teaming up with Sammy Guevara. And then he had this like feud with Orange Cassidy. And it's like something about it. It's just like, you know, with Jericho, like whenever the worst thing comes during this time, he brought up to like, despite like his stupid decision he done behind the scenes, like, you know, outside of AEW, but I digress on it. Stables, I'm gonna have to go with Best Friends because Trent and Chucky T, they were mostly involved like during like, you know, with the whole tag team aspect, and then Orange Cassidy too as a singles competitor. So Best Friends as the stable. And for women, I put Britt Baker. she had an incredible match, and up until she had an injury, but hey, she still showed up. She brought in, of course, Rebel, aka Reba, as her assistant, and from there on, she's always in the present, cutting promos, taking jab at Big Swole. And so for the women's division, of course, I put Britt Baker. Now for Impact Wrestling, for the male, I put Chris Bay because he had an incredible run with Impact, especially becoming the X Division champion at Slammiversary, and especially like bring in the finesse of it. And he did compete in the determined for the who's going to get the spot for the Impact World title. Now for stables, I put in the Rascals just because I do enjoy their treehouse segment. And now leading up to like what happened last week, they just had their final appearance at Impact Wrestling. Well, not last week, 2 weeks ago, which of course I'm still saddened. But hey, it was great seeing the Rascals at West Coast Pro last December, which it was honored being there and all that. And then like for women, I'm actually going to be putting Jordan Grace in there because like she actually showed up for the most of the time during this whole pandemic era in Impact Wrestling, like defending the title. She was the Impact Knockouts champion until she lost the title to Deonna Purrazzo. And now that she's actually competing in the Knockouts Tag Team Tournament with a mystery partner, which, y'all, that was so shocking. She's back. But just digress on that. Now with New Japan Pro Wrestling, I'm going with like the heavyweights and the juniors, and also based on tag teams and stable. For heavyweights, for New Japan, I go with Naito because of him being the double champion, despite his like questionable feud against Evil, like having their like rivalry back and forth. But for him, he actually carried out mostly like during the whole COVID era. Stables wise, I'm going with Suzuki-gun. Wow. Suzuki-gun has been like the ruthless stable of all. And pretty much everybody was there except for Taku Michinoku, because he's still busy with like running his own like independent wrestling company in Japan. But like you have like Zack Sabre Jr. and Taiji being the IWGP tag team champion, Kanemaru and El Desperado as the IWGP Junior Tag Team Champion, and Minoru Suzuki as he was the never openweight champion, but he lost to Shingo Takagi at the Power Struggle Tour finale too. So with Suzuki-gun, they actually brought in more like each of the matches, especially during the New Japan Cup, mind-blowing. Tag teams, I put Dangerous Tekker as well, especially Taiji. He has been like one of the most rising star in New Japan Pro Wrestling, especially he beat Tanahashi and Ibushi at the New Japan Cup. That was like the most shocking moment I've seen of all. So including with Zack Sabre Jr., having like them as a team together is actually like more of like more cohesive, and especially like they are very ruthless. Junior heavyweight actually put Show because he's now on his own since his tag team partner Yo is out with an ACL. He's held up in his own, even though he had like one title shot for the never open one against Shingo Takagi. That was like back in July, but he lost. But it looks like he's going to be the fan favorite for the junior, for the Best of Super Junior 27. And then for the junior tag team, again, El Desperado and Kanemaru. Same thing about like Zack Sabre Jr. and Taiji before. So these are the MVPs from like each of the different promotions. I know I'm kind of saying it a little bit longer, but I just wanted to break it down because like everybody does deserve to get a chance, like based on like different categories from different promotions alike.
Absolutely.
Someone did their homework.
Man, I feel underprepared. Jesus. Brandon, who do you think has been the MVP?
So I'm gonna go more on the NXT route. I know here on the Bullet Cast we don't talk too much about NXT, but that was kind of the one promotion that you guys didn't really touch on. So I'm gonna go kind of Cindy's route. I'm gonna go like different areas. So I think the Undisputed Era as a whole have been doing such good work. We had Adam Cole kind of coming in to the pandemic, being the champion, turning babyface against Pat McAfee. And shout out Pat McAfee. He's just doing such good work over there with the Kings of NXT. And then kind of on the women's side, I'm going to go more with like, I think Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae together have been just phenomenal. Cause I think going into it, I've always seen Johnny and Candice as being like the lovable underdog baby faces, but they've done such a good job this past couple months being just the annoying couple. And I mean, they're not like leeching off of each other. They're their own act. They are fun together, but they do their own things on their own as well. Also, Shotzi, shout out Shotzi, Town Business. She has come on, and I think I was very not like impressed with her, but I was just kind of surprised about how much NXT has used her recently. I mean, she was the host of Halloween Havoc. She's had her moments in the women's division, challenging for titles and of such. So I think NXT, I think AEW as a whole have been putting on better shows consistently than NXT, but NXT's hanging right there with AEW and putting on a fantastic stuff.
Absolutely, man. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we get to our last question, we are going to get to our last guest for today. He is a 4-time Emmy Award-winning interviewer, my fellow Canadian, Chris Van Vliet. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a big episode 200. We have back the 4-time Emmy Award-winning interviewer, CVV, Chris Van Vliet. Thank you so much for coming back, man.
Well, thanks for having me on. My honorary Canadian. Wow. Thank you for having me on, and a big congrats on 200 episodes to you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. You heard it here first, people. I'm an honorary Canadian. I hail from Toronto, aka the Six.
There it is. You and Drake, you're like your best friends. Yeah.
Absolutely. Aubrey and I, we go way back to the Degrassi days. Absolutely. 100%. No, but thank you so much, man. I know you've been busy. You're killing it. I mean, Jake Roberts, you had the interview where Jazz announced her retirement. Dominic Mysterio, David Arquette. You've been doing a lot of great stuff, man.
I just like having interesting conversations with interesting people, not unlike this one. So, yeah, thank you. And we're in an interesting time right now, as we talked about last time. We're in an interesting time with the pandemic and COVID. So you and me both have been making the best of this time by trying to do as much as we can.
Absolutely. So when we did our interview earlier this year, it was May, and that was still the early stages of the pandemic and the wrestling world adjusting to this. So the first topic I want to talk about is wrestling in the pandemic era. What were your thoughts at the beginning of it? And then what have been your thoughts in the last couple of weeks as we've seen some companies start to run shows again, and other ones that have been doing it since March? What have been your thoughts on all of that?
Well, it's been a big adjustment for everybody, both in the ring and out of the ring. And I think that when look, WWE and AEW for sure were not prepared for this. How could you be prepared for this? I mean, this happened just a few weeks before WrestleMania. But I think that we all kind of went, oh, this will just be one show. And we saw the memes like, Raw on Monday is going to be like this. And it was the empty arena match with Rock and Mankind. And everyone kind of went, ha, 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 that's so funny. And here we are 7 months later, and that's every single episode of wrestling. But I feel like there were some really good adjustments made early on. AEW made a huge adjustment by pointing the camera where it was important to point the camera. They pointed the camera at the entranceway and the ring. Whereas if you flick the channel to NXT on those first couple episodes, they were highlighting like, hey, look, everybody, no one's here. And it was interesting to see that adjustment made really early on to go, oh, okay, like let's put the focus on what's important here. The Thunderdome's been really cool. I think that adding in the crowd noise was something that we all kind of went, oh, geez, this is going to be terrible. But now it's being added in football games, and they're doing such a great job with it. So, look, I think that we've all adjusted to what this is. And that is all to say that when fans are welcome back in the arenas, we are all going to go, oh, this is so good. Oh, it's so nice to have people back.
Absolutely. Like everybody's going to be over. Like I think Corbin's going to get like a huge pop. Yeah, but
I look forward to it, and who knows when it's going to happen, right? And I hope that when it happens, it's done as safely as possible. But when they can start to have 100% capacity at any of these shows, I hope that they set a date like in advance so that we can all go, oh my God, that January 15th show is going to be unreal. Or hopefully it's not, but like the July 15th show or whatever it's going to be. And then they're going to build this thing up like it's WrestleMania and Double or Nothing and Slammiversary all into one.
Yes, July 15th, 2025.
There,
I hope not. I hope not. I've been watching like wrestling. I'm like, I need to be back there, But I want to talk about the state of the art that is the Thunderdome. I mean, WWE, they really upped the ante because the Performance Center shows, I mean, there were some good matches. Some people were able to shine. Like, I think MVP, no pun intended, was the MVP of the Performance Center era of this pandemic. But with the Thunderdome, I mean, it's taken it to new heights. It feels like Raw. It feels like SmackDown. Pay-per-views, they feel important again. What have been your thoughts on the Thunderdome?
They feel important-ish, I think is the way to say it. They feel as important as they can during, this strange time that we're all living through right now in 2020. And look, WWE is this massive media company and this massive, billion-dollar entity for a reason. They figure out a way to make things work. And I'm interested to see what happens when their lease at the Amway Center expires. I believe it's at the end of October. So I'm interested to see what happens here and figure out, I think they're going to start to go on tour, at least with some small audiences.
Yeah, they extended it until Thanksgiving weekend. So once that's up, let's know what's going to happen in December. We don't know.
Well, if AEW is able to have, their handful of crowd there in Jacksonville, and WWE is just a little bit further south in Central Florida, I would have to think that they're looking at everything AEW is doing and going, oh yeah, we could do that. Or they're looking at everything that the NFL teams are doing where they're able to have crowds and they're going, we can do that. We could make that work.
Absolutely. So what have been your thoughts about some promotions starting to run shows again? I mean, you've seen, people don't talk about it enough, but Impact has done fairly well in this era. We've seen Ring of Honor is starting to put out content again. No fans are there, but I'm talking about the GCWs and the Warrior Wrestling. And I know you've interviewed a couple talent at a recent wrestling show. What have been your thoughts about certain independents putting out content again and having fans in attendance?
I get that it kind of needs to happen, or else these independents are probably not going to exist. It's having those shows that is what drives this forward. So if they're being done safely, if they're being done and taking all of the COVID protocols that they can, then I'm all for it. I mean, Warrior Wrestling is a great example. They're doing this in the middle of a football field and fans are 20, 30 feet away. And, there's no cash allowed. And you basically have to sit in your little bubble with your fellow people that you came with. So if all of these precautions are being taken, then I say go for it. It's exciting to see that there's some sort of tiny little semblance of normalness back in this, really strange, abnormal time that we're living in right now.
No, absolutely, man. 100%. I didn't get your thoughts. What are your thoughts on Capitol Wrestling Center, WWE? They redid the Performance Center for NXT, and I like that. It's a little bit of the Thunderdome Rome. You have the trainees around the ring, and you have I think friends and family of certain talent around there, and then they put the cage on the plexiglass. I've made this analogy, but it kind of feels like Bloodsport Fight Club type.
It looks cool. And again, my hat's off to WWE and AEW, Impact, New Japan, all of them, Ring of Honor, for figuring out a way to make this work. WWE and AEW are great examples of going, all right, we have a weekly television product. We have an agreement with whether it's Fox or USA or TNT. We have an agreement. We have to put a product out there. So it's amazing to see how they've been able to do it. And look, this is going to be a time that we look back on, or in 5 or 10 years, and it'll have an asterisk next to it. We'll go, that was cool. They really made do with what they could do, but it's not, it's not the same. And I think that it was Shane Helms, Hurricane Helms, explained this best to me and had the best analogy. He said, wrestling with no fans is kind of like going and doing a comedy set with no audience. And it's so spot on. It's exactly right. It's like the fans make this what it is. The fans got Daniel Bryan over. The fans have created my favorite match of all time. Rock Hogan was not a great wrestling match, but the fans made that an incredibly entertaining experience. And my heart goes out to people like Drew McIntyre, who had his WrestleMania moment, but kind of really didn't have his WrestleMania moment. And I feel for guys like that. I feel for Matt Hardy or Brody Lee, who debuted to nobody. And I wonder what that could have looked like if there was a full house there.
Absolutely. So who do you think has been the MVP of the pandemic era? I know he came back late, but I want to say Roman. I do. This new swagger, this new machismo, the tribal chief, the special counsel, Paul Heyman by his side. Like I dig it. And I think a lot of people are now realizing like, yo, we were wrong about this guy. He can work. He can perform. We were just being a-holes about it because we didn't want him to be the guy.
The Roman heel turn's good. I just feel like it was like 5 years too late because I think he could have turned on the Shield. That would have been a way better heel turn. You know, having the crowd reaction would have been so good. So yeah, look, Roman's been great during this time. He has a great smile now too. Wow, that thing will blind you from a mile away. Wow. I think the real MVP during this last year has been Chris Jericho. And I say that because not because he's the demo god or the million viewer man or any of these, great names that he gives himself, but I think it's because he's in his 30th year of wrestling and he's more relevant now than he's ever been. And it's crazy to look back at his career, and he won the championship for the first time like a decade into his career. And I think a lot of people would have gone, oh, that's the peak of your career. Maybe you'll win another 1 or 2 or 3 times, and that's it. Here he is 20 years later doing better stuff than he's ever done. So I think it goes to Chris Jericho for me, for the ability that he has to reinvent himself week after week, month after month, year after year, and decade after decade.
I mean, absolutely 100%. I mean, like Champion, he took a guy that his gimmick is walking around slow and putting his hands in his pockets. He made him feel important. That's just a credit to Jericho and the mastery of his craft. And Jericho's name can be thrown in the hat for something like that. But if we look at like the Performance Center era, like I said, MVP, I think Asuka's another great one. Her just yelling in Japanese was hilarious. Stuff like that, man.
I'm going to have to agree with you on MVP because there was a guy who I think if you asked MVP and you asked him honestly, did you ever think you'd be back in WWE? I think his answer would have been no, not at all. And I'd seen him at a bunch of indies. He's a fantastic guy. I love MVP, but they gave him the ball and he ran with it. And then they called him again. And there he was a week later. And, he ran with the ball again. And here he is with this, one of the best factions, at least in current wrestling right now, with the Hurt Business, not only getting himself over, but getting everybody else in that faction over.
Absolutely. Like, I can't remember the last time people really cared about Cedric Alexander or a Shelton Benjamin, and making Bobby Lashley feel like an absolute badass where people were like, oh, he's stuck in this weird storyline with Lana and he's kind of boring. He's helped elevate all those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was funny. I was watching last night and I was thinking that exact same thing about Cedric Alexander. I was thinking, wow, he's relevant, and he's relevant because of this great booking here. So I hope MVP stays around for a while longer. But if this is it, if this is all we see from MVP in this latest run, man, great job.
Yeah, no, I think when we look back at MVP's career, we'll be like, okay, the Hurt Business stuff was really good. And then, of course, they'll go back to, like, the Matt Hardy stuff he did in, like, 06, 07. But I want to talk about, what do you think has been the show of the year? Now, for me, I've been like, the Stadium Stampede was cool. The Firefly Funhouse match was nice. I feel like there are certain moments and matches that I've liked throughout the year, but not an entire show. Like, exclude Rumble, exclude Revolution. The shows with no audience.
That's actually a really good point. I do appreciate how much shorter the shows have been, though, all across the board. I was really pleasantly surprised with WrestleMania. And I was supposed to be in Tampa this year for WrestleMania. And when I watched it on TV, my expectations, like everybody else's, were really low. They put that thing together very, very quickly. They had to obviously rework some of those matches and turn them into other things. But I think that they did an incredible job of making the best of a terrible situation. So I will say the 2-night extravaganza of WrestleMania, as WWE was kind of figuring out their footing in this strange COVID time, and they made it work. And we were also all at home during that time. We were all at home. And I feel like they knew that the spotlight was going to be on them. They knew that all eyes were going to be on them. And I think that they took the torch and they ran with it.
Absolutely, man. I mean, do you have any other promotions that kind of stand out for shows?
I'm glad to see New Japan is back. And I know that they're on the other side of the world, but it's been so exciting. I follow Will Ospreay on Instagram, and he's been posting a few clips. And it's just so exciting seeing that they've figured stuff out on their side of the world a little bit better than we figured stuff out on our side of the world here. So it's cool to see fans, even though the fans aren't that loud in a New Japan show, but it's cool to see that they've got fans there. And my fingers are crossed that the Tokyo Dome show can happen as planned.
Absolutely, man. I think that's going to be a nice landmark, if you could say that. Like, hey, like this is what it could be over here if we kind of follow the protocols that they're doing over there. But that's a completely different topic, and we don't get political on this show.
Well, it's the start of the year, right? That show's on January 4th, right?
My birthday.
So, yeah, there you go. Well, happy early birthday to you.
Thanks, bud.
So for them to start off the year with a bang and I'm sure incredible matches, I hope that sets the tone for 2021 and we can go, oh, there's a lot of opportunity this year.
Absolutely. You know, like the possibility of, will we have an actual Rumble in January? Like we don't know about these things. So, you know, hopefully things get taken care of in the next couple months to where we can start to see other promotions start opening back up and getting back to business.
Look, I would have to think that WWE has the Rumble as kind of a finish line in mind. And I'm making this up completely. This is not based on any sort of actual news or reports. But if I'm WWE, I would think, what if we did a Rumble outside? And, you know, if NFL games can have 20 or 25% capacity, or in Florida, you're actually allowed to have full capacity. They're just not doing it right now. Maybe they're looking at that and going, if we can get to the Rumble, we can have fans there. If we put this in a football stadium, we can have a lot of fans there. So this is a prediction. This is a prediction I'm making right now. We'll see how this pans out in a few months, but it's a prediction.
All right. No, 100%. I completely agree with you. Hopefully we can have people back by January for the Rumble. Cause I mean, a Rumble without actual fans, it's not really a Rumble.
Yeah, you need the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The great thing about going to a Rumble live is everyone makes the sound effect too.
That's great, man. That's great. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on episode 200, man. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, pleasure's mine. Congratulations. 200 episodes. That's amazing.
Thank you so much, man. Chris, you know, let the people know where they can find you.
Well, wherever you're listening to this, you can find my podcast, The Chris Van Vliet Show, and I'm at Chris Van Vliet on all social media.
All right. Thank you so much. CVV back on the BC twice in 1 year. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Chris.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Wow. What a great conversation Chris and I just had. I mean, you heard at the beginning, you know, he mentioned me as a Canadian, so I'm officially recognized. I hail from the 6, just like my boy Drizzy.
It'll be nice because it's the 200th episode.
Of course, you're still mad at them because of how they treated Bailey, but she's been doing dastardly things. You have to be over that by now.
I mean, you gotta rep the Bay. I don't care what you do, you know, as long as you don't do anything too bad.
Okay. I was about
There's
to
a
say.
line. She hasn't crossed it yet.
I was about to say, hold on there, brother. All right, the last question. What has been the show of the year? We're not talking Rumble. We're not talking Wrestle Kingdom. We're not talking AEW Revolution. What has been the best wrestling show, the best pay-per-view in the pandemic era, Brandon?
So when it comes down to me, I was thinking of two different shows, one for AEW, one for WWE, and one is at the beginning of the pandemic and one is later in the pandemic. So I was bouncing between Full Gear and WrestleMania. I think I'm leaning towards WrestleMania just because it has the extra disadvantage of being so early in the pandemic, you know, kind of scrambling. They only had like a month and a half or a month to really prepare for this. And I think they pulled it off spectacularly. I mean, 2 days we saw Wrestle Kingdom do it. WrestleMania going in that same route, doing the 2-day thing. We had the Boneyard match, which was phenomenal. The Firefly Funhouse match, which I know some people didn't like. I quite enjoyed it myself, but I'm going to go with WrestleMania. I know it might be the easy pick, but I think just kind of all the surrounding circumstances of it being early in the pandemic and just being a total headache and a hassle to kind of figure out logistically what is they were going to do. And I think they pulled it off probably as best as they could.
Yeah, absolutely. You said the Boneyard match was phenomenal because there was a phenom and a phenomenal guy in there. I see what you did there, bud. Ha ha. Cindy, what's been the best wrestling pay-per-view of the pandemic era?
Honestly, I'm gonna go with AEW's Double or Nothing because that was the pay-per-view that I really enjoy, especially how they actually handle like bringing like everybody to tune in. Like you have like the rosters and some of the independent wrestling talents like on ringside. They actually brought in more of like a lively crowd alike, especially Big Swole, of course, giving in some of the attitude towards Lance Archer during the his match against Cody for the TNT titles. That was hilarious. And then of course Austin Gunn, being his, you know, with his loud cheers and boos. But I really enjoyed a lot. It actually kind of like sets like a more of a distraction, like what's going on with COVID. And it's just more, even though like the only match that was so bad was like Sean Spear versus Dustin Rhodes, because it should have been there. But like the rest of the match, I was very blown away. Like Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose for the AEW Women's title. That was the best women's match I've seen. That's like prior to like Shida versus Thunder Rosa at All Out. And then what else? The Stadium Stampede match. That's actually one of my favorite cinematic matches of all time. Even though like some they say, oh, it's not, doesn't consider a cinematic match. Yes, they already tape in advance. And they actually did in a very impressive job, like, the execution of the productions to like each of the angles and like how will be ending the feud between the Elite and Matt Hardy and against the Inner Circle, even though like we still have that continue on feud with Sammy Guevara versus Matt Hardy, aka the curse of the feud, as I called it. But yeah, so pretty much Double or Nothing is actually like my favorite show out of the COVID era because honestly, I was hesitant to buy the pay-per-view because like I was so anti like empty, like what should I pay $50? I wish it would have like lowered it down, but like you know what? It was money well spent.
Absolutely. For me, probably when we do the Bullet Cast end of year awards in a couple weeks, and Cindy, hopefully you'll be back to join us for that.
I'll be there.
Absolutely, 100%. I think I'm gonna go just as far as matches. People love the Boneyard match because it was a fight. It felt like, oh, this could really happen. I'm going the Firefly Funhouse match because I'm a story guy. I'm a story guy. I love that so much. And it was a career trajectory of Cena. He's plastered behind me right here, as you can see. From the bright tights to the you can look but you can't touch, a little dig at him and Nikki Bella. I popped for that. To him coming out of the NWO gear, like, oh my God, he really is Hogan. He just never turned. I really enjoyed that atmosphere of it. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with personally. But I think that's gonna do it, guys. We did it, episode 200. Yay!
Yay!
Oh my God, thank you guys so much. So Cindy, where can the people find you?
Well, you guys can follow me on Twitter and Instagram and on my hiatus YouTube at simply_C_OK. That's SIMPLY_C_OK. And, like I said, stay tuned to new episode of Into the Stratosphere. We'll be posting it like every other weekend, you guys. You know me, I cover New Japan Pro Wrestling and Impact Wrestling. And then other non-WWE, a little bit of AEW, other wrestling related news, or whichever to talk about. And just remember, you guys, as always, I say in the closing statement in my show, remember to please be kind to one another. We're all in this together.
Absolutely. Brandon, where can they find you, bud?
I'm on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, my personal account, Brandon Tanguma _ I'm not going to spell it out. There's too many letters. You can figure it out. But Curveballs and Chair Shots, also Twitter and Instagram. A little more active on the Instagram. Curveballs and CS on the Instagram. Every Friday, we talk sports and wrestling, including NXT. You can see Mr. X's sports questions if you so desire.
Absolutely. You could actually see Mr. X when I post the video of him. Of course, if you just want to like go to the Bulletcast Instagram, the Bulletcast on Instagram, there in the bio. Yeah, so I guess that's going to do it. I'll Bulletcast on Twitter. At Bulletcast2 is in the number 2, sweet swet@gmail.com. You know, email us questions, 99.9 FMK to Ben Watsonville every Thursday night from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. iTunes, tune in, Spotify, Anchor, Patreon. We're all over the damn place. If you want to follow me personally, at Heel Antwine, HeelAntwine on the Twitter and the Instagram. I do other things too. Cheeklay TV, you can check that out. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, Complex Conversations, my other podcast that I do. It's on Instagram, it's on Twitter, it's on YouTube. Check all that out. Thank you guys so much for being here. This has been a great journey. Cindy, hopefully you're in it for the long haul with us. And Brandon, thank you, my brother. You're my tag team partner, truthfully. Thank you for sticking by me all these years and all these episodes. To 200 more. Yeah.
Woo!
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Stay clean, stay strong, stay safe, stay quarantined. Diamonds are forever, and so is the microphone messiah.
This has been the Bulletcast. Thank you for listening.